Okay, we're live. Here we are, October's meeting of the Marine Resource Task Force. We do the call to order, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call from the left today.
Rose Larkin, present. Jennifer Rusk, present.
Greg Fossum, present.
Steve Johnson, present.
Mary Rose Spalletta, present.
Robert Howell, present.
Wendy D. Gattano, present.
Leach, Council Liaison, present.
Ed Schutz, environmental staff of the town, present.
Here. Okay, let's call here to approve the agenda. Need to add one current item.
Yes, if it pleases the chairman and members of the MRF, if we could add the election or voting on the new chair and vice chair.
It would elate me. Did that elate anybody else?
No objection here.
Okay, it's added. So all favor of the current agenda?
I add one thing. Under the Pier Wildlife, I also have some information about potential citizen patrol officers. I think it could go together with that, if we could add that in.
/ citizen patrol officers. Okay. Okay, with that being added, motion to approve minute of the agenda?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Any objection? Discussion? Okay, motion carries unanimously. And off we go. Approval of the previous meeting minutes. I just had the one correction. Becky Schneider, name is misspelled here. Instead of S-N-Y-D-E-R, it should be S-C-H-N-E-I-E-R. Any other criticisms?
Move the minutes be accepted with that one correction.
Second? Objections? And carries unanimously. Off we go. Okay. Public comment. Oh, nice to see you again. Come in.
Ready to go?
That'd be perfect. You know the routine.
Okay, for the record, my name is Bill Perry. I'm going to comment on items A and B. The cleanup of the vegetation on the Carlos Point bird nesting area. It's quite extensive. I've been away the last 3 months. I came back just to do that cleanup. And 75 tractor hours to clean it up. Had a lot of discussions with the FWC. I know Rebecca came before you to discuss using herbicide. The property owners there don't like the idea of blanket spraying of herbicide. They're worried about implication of Roundup in the soil. So we discussed them investing in backpack sprayers so they can do like they used to do years ago, actually spray in the refuge area, because only their personnel are allowed in the refuge. Actually spray as the sand spurs to grow. Did that years ago, and it was quite effective at limiting the sand spurs, but they've stopped over the last 4 or 5 years doing it. So we discussed that. Thinks that's promising. And then also the crow's feet this year was the worst it had ever been. We are going to go in and cut the crow's feet down to about ½ an inch. And then we will rotary till. I've looked into other types of equipment, harvest sand spurs, harvest the crow's feet, collect it. The only problem I see is this stuff is very expensive, but no matter what you do, if you allow the sand spurs to grow to seed, you're always going to get them escaping into the environment and then, of course, regrowing next year. So over the years, and I've been doing it now 11 years, for us, the quickest way to take care of the situation is rotary tilling, but you put the seed back into the ground. So this is where I discussed it with Rebecca at great length, that they have to actually spray or pull before they go to seed. And that starts in May and June, before the rains really start to hit. You can always see, I can see it from in the tractor when the sand spurs are starting to come up. They grow straight up. Not until they're full of seed do they splay out. So I can spot it from in the cab. So if they're in the area that's cordoned off, they can go around, just give it a quick shot, their backpack sprayer, and that'll eliminate it before it goes to seed. So that's where we are with as far as eradicating or at least limiting the sand spur growth for next season. Because it's caused mortality in the birds like it did years ago. It caused mortality in the birds. Now I know this time the mortality was more because the birds were injured, and then they developed an infection. In the past, the fledgling chicks were so covered in sand spurs they couldn't even move. And so that's why Keith at the time implemented much more spraying. But it relies on the FWC because they're the only people that are allowed into the cordon off area. So I've suggested to Rebecca the type of backpack sprayer and everything to use because I've got familiarity with that equipment. So that's it with my comments on Carlos Point. I'm actually going down there today to inspect it and see what else may need to be done. We left CO clusters that had established themselves out in the outer beach. We never removed those. We don't grind those up. We leave those for Chad. He goes with the town and the guys, pull them up carefully, and then they're transplanted to areas on the island where we have accesses where we figure that they'll do well. And we've done that now the last couple of years, and it's worked really well. So I have to keep telling the property owners, don't worry, that the COs, they're going to be transplanted. It's just guys have to, fit it into their schedule. That's enough about that. The real concern is, I do an inventory of all the beaches before I leave that I maintain, and I maintain from one end of the island to the other. I've been doing this now for 40 years on the beach. And I also do work on Captiva. I go as far as Clearwater. I till beaches. And for making the beaches turtle friendly, I have to till them to 36 inches after they've been renourished to soften them to less than 500 PSI. Anyway, what I've noticed on this island in the last 10 years is a proliferation of coin vine. You go into the dunes on Captiva, there isn't any. It's getting so bad everywhere on the island that it is killing sea grapes. And it just grows over them like a blanket. And I can't get over how bad it is now in the critical wildlife area with knickerbeam and coin vine in the areas out in front of Leonardo Arms and the Riviera and that area. And north end of the island in the renourishment area where we put in all the dunes that I worked on, they're all being killed. I'm sure Robert's noticed a proliferation of coin vine in the north end. I know it's not an exotic. There has to be something done because it's just all the dunes up and down the entire island are being taken over by this stuff. And also, Australian pine. I've never seen so many. I counted 14 yesterday in the area of Gulf Road. The massive growth of vegetation that is, as that beach has grown. We got 150, 200 feet of vegetation out the water almost in front of those houses down there. Well, that was once just sea oats and some other salt-tolerant dune vegetation. Now, we got an Australian pine farm going down there. I counted 14 and just in front of 2 houses.
Gulf, did you say? Cracks in the Gulf? Gulf Boulevard, you're saying, Bill?
Between, Flamingo and that area north.
Right.
Coin vine And it's not as noticeable because it's back in on top of the sea grapes, it's back in on top of the sea oats. You have to go in there to the vegetation. But the Australian pines, you can't miss them. They're kind of 14, and I'm in the tractor just cruising by. So I'm sure there's more. So, no, I was at a meeting last year when I remember Chad bringing it up, that there needs to be some kind of program. And I really think that y'all need to come up with some kind of program and then convince the council it needs to be funded, and maybe look for other sources of funding through TDC, whatever. It has the, I don't see this proliferation of these things when I'm out doing work for Captiva. I go from one end of Captiva to the other. And I didn't used to see this on Fort Myers Beach. And I tell all my accounts that, hey, listen, you got to get your landscapers in there. This is going to kill all your vegetation. Island's End has done a massive plant, and they've trimmed it back. You can't remove it completely because it's not considered an exotic. Leonardo Arms has been working on it because we also have the Scaevola. And I had a conversation with them. They cleaned out one area, but the area where all the nigger bean was, they left that. I was like, you guys, this is a hazard. If a child walks by and falls on that stuff, it's like falling on razor wire. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. I know a lot of you are up and down the beach, and you're always going up and down the beach, but maybe I have an even better perspective because I'm everywhere. And I had been away for 3 months, and I just couldn't believe how much it had proliferated. Of course, it is the rainy season. It bothers me because it's going to destroy a lot of the dune vegetation. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, for your contributions. Okay. Without further ado, let's jump in then. Current items, the first on the list here is the Carlos Point Beach Shorebird Nesting Area Management. Last meeting when Rebecca came and presented, I think we just had a quorum. I think there's maybe just 4 of us. We were missing a number of you. I was hoping that maybe you'd be able to review that document that was sent out on their plan for the Carlos Point Beach down there at the southern tip of the island where the shorebird nesting areas. Maybe just do a real high, recap here. They were investigating a couple ways to try to mitigate specifically the sand spurs and it wasn't the coin vine, it was the foot, right? It was really bad. So we had, after she had left and we had the discussion about it, we had all, I think, contributed, at least the 4 that were here, that it wasn't long ago that we were attempting to rid the island of glyphosate, period, but we were preempted by the state from doing that because there's laws that say you can't limit herbicides. So we were going to put together a recommendation letter to her that formalized the thoughts from our advisory board. Bill had just mentioned that he also is against broadcast spraying, which I think we all are. But I think based on our discussion, we were completely against glyphosate, period, and would hope that they would pursue the other options there, which was seawater was one of them. Apparently that's an effective means of controlling it. Acetic acid, basically vinegar. Not spraying for that, manual chemical, or I should say mechanical removal, and basically hand removing them.
Is there an electrical charge possibility too, Bill? Steve?
Yeah, there's a discussion of maybe using one of those torches, handheld torches.
Something that you could
to torch.
stick
Yeah.
the probe in and just zap. That would be each plant.
Yeah, it's actually a propane. It's just a propane tank with a hand torch on it.
Yeah.
Long rod, with a small cylinder at the end that had a flame that came off it, and you just.
It's directed at that individual plant.
Yeah, you kill the plants. Yeah, a lot of people are doing that now for vegetation management.
How long does it take?
I don't know if that's immediate. I mean, it's immediate. I don't know if it actually kills the roots and everything. There's questions about it. It takes multiple. Many of these probably take more treatments than glyphosate. That's a pretty wicked, killer.
So if you put the pole in, does it just affect the one plant, or does it?
No, just the plant, just the portion you see. It basically just torches it. So the issue though is that the roots are still there and it can reemerge.
It doesn't damage anything else around there, theoretically.
Correct, yeah, no.
Didn't they say the glyphosate would be a very small percentage that they would use? Isn't that what she said?
No, she said there's two means to do it. One is spot spraying, which,
That it would be very dilute, is that it?
it's not so much dilute as the formulation that they're saying that they're using now. It's
I think
more,
spot spraying, you're just spraying the plants as you see them, whereas broadcast spraying would be basically an ATV with tens and tens of gallons of the solution, basically just blanket sprayed.
like paint, almost like painting. I mean,
Okay.
you just completely, and which basically effectively kills everything.
Kills everything.
I did have a conversation with Brett Cornell at Audubon, and told him about our non-glyphosate test that we did here, and sent him the report that Shannon did that report. He was very interested in that, because, the advantage of a salt vinegar and maybe, with a little bit of detergent in it, is that when the rain comes, it's essentially neutralized. There's already salt there. I'm not sure if the salt tolerance of these plants would make them more tolerant of the salt, vinegar, and soap thing, or the one the town uses with the cinnamon oil, I think it was. But of course, the problem with glyphosate is it does most of its harm when it's in an aquatic environment.
Right. Right. The other thing we'd found out is that their nesting success has not been, although there's problems with sepsis in them, it was still a very successful season. It has been increasing.
Yeah, the productivity seems like it's stable. Rebecca said that when she spoke with y'all last time. Productivity for nesting seems like it's been stable. There has been the sepsis issue in Marco and in here. They did talk about that at length at the FSA webinar last week, I guess. And my take on the sepsis is that it's, the bacteria that they're finding are something that would be there regardless. It's just an opportunistic infection, which maybe begs the question, is there something happening with the birds themselves that compromising their ability to fight off those bacteria that are always there? There's no hard and fast answers. They haven't found any links to human waste, but again, bacteria that they're finding it's things that are always there, so it's not
Actually occurring, sure.
right. So you'd normally find staph on our skin. We don't necessarily get a staph infection unless wound or some sort of immunocompromised state. Which is also an interesting conversation with glyphosate.
Right. That'll leave us. So we've got a couple things. One is, I think there's still maybe just a little bit of conversation about it in general, because, Bill had brought up about the EC zone in general. We had also maybe just thrown around asking the town to actually make a resolution, prohibiting the use of glyphosate in the EC zone. And, but in hindsight, if there are Australian pines, which we had brought up at previous meetings, when cutting that, you need to paint the stump typically, correct, with a chemical herbicide? That would essentially prohibit that as well. Well, if we ask them to prohibit artificial chemical herbicides.
It's true. I think something like an Australian pine, that's something you could keep up with without painting it. Painting it does assure you that that's not coming back. Things like scaevola will come back. It is worth a conversation, targeted versus broadcast, and how do you make a resolution. But I think, with the Australians and taking out the Australian pines, putting them at the stump, will some growth occur? Yes, but I don't think it's anything we can't keep up with.
Okay, but as also maybe as a quick follow-up, not to get off the topic here, but at a previous meeting, we also had requested the town provide you with some resources and potential funding for removing invasives in the EC. That's directly to, the point that was brought up earlier about eliminating the Australian pines. And
that beach maintenance may be enable that. May come down to a matter of just staff resources. I don't think we want to wait too long into the people season because their time is more spent just maintaining, keeping up with the load of tourist season. But, you know, in years past, we've, around November, you know, after the end of sea turtle season, making a run for the Australian pines is something that we've done. So with the scaevola, in the CWA, we've hit it before. We haven't done anything on private lands, and we need to get authorization for that on private lands.
Right.
Same thing with the Australian pine. I think people are more amenable to the Australian pines because of the view issue versus scaevola. They just see it as a cheap and easy shrub. And, you know, some people may want to get rid of it and just don't realize that they can. That'll just be more of an educational challenge.
That's mostly invasive scaevola too, right? It's none of the native. Do we have?
Yeah, we
native
do have some
scaevola?
inkberry, especially in the WA area and kind of on the south. I've seen it. Once you see the two species, it's easy to tell them apart.
So let me ask you this question also. For homeowners, they're allowed to remove native invasives if they want to, correct? Do they need a DEP?
They're allowed to
as long
trim
as they
back.
replant? Well, as long as they replant, I mean, the idea is that,
Yeah. So according to that, according to the town, yes. So they stewardship guidance that's based on the beach, managed beach zones. Yes. May not get a simple answer from the state regarding that, but
you get it, do you require a DEP permit to do that, or you're saying that's just,
if you're asking DEP if they require a permit, the answer would probably be yes.
okay. So a homeowner though, essentially is responsible for the land. I mean, if they wanted to go in and remove all the knicker bean, coin vine, plant native to hold the soil, I mean, they could do that.
According to the town policy, yes.
Those are native plants.
They're native, right? But they're colonizers.
They're all
and
native,
they're-
yeah.
I
They
mean,
just,
they're,
they call them natives behaving badly.
right. Well, yeah, colonizers. Native invasives, basically.
I am concerned about some, I've gotten reports of some beachfront owners using the excuse of removing sand spurs and taking out other natives as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that, you know, that's the concern. It's very difficult to police. You know, you see a beach that is, you know, you've seen some coyotes that you know are going to survive during wet season, and then all of a sudden they're, you know, nowhere to be found.
Yeah, right.
Excuse was sand spurs. So
Mm-hmm.
it's difficult to police, but actually you got to pay the piper.
Okay, we'll slide it into invasives then, in the EC zone.
We're sliding into,
No, not quite yet. I mean, we're still on Carlos Point because, I mean, I think we still need to give them a recommendation. I don't think, again, the four that were here were, I think, all amenable to basically telling them that we were against the Roundup
Yeah, I go
on the
with that.
beach.
I think the, non-glyphosate herbicides that we're talking about, you could spray those more heavily too.
One issue with vinegar that I think was a valid point from FWC is that the vinegar, and you can smell it whenever you come out through town hall and they sprayed it, it could be noxious to the birds. So, you know, anything when the birds are there is a challenge. That's why only FWC does it. But my ask to FWC last season, and we were challenged last season with COVID and personnel, was to let's try the less environmentally, or let's try the more environmentally friendly methods first, being, you know, vinegar and or propane tank. Try that and see how effective it is before we go into conversations of glyphosate.
Or also, maybe there's some spots where we could test out, because, one thing, because most of the mixtures that are the non-glyphosate include salt, but if these plants are already salt tolerant, I'd rather just putting down like a very concentrated salt.
You can definitely see that the plants that are in the salt marsh area, you don't see as much crow's feet in there. You don't see as much sand spurs in there. Those plants like the higher uplands.
Oh, so the area that's down along the condos there that floods during a real high tide? you
You'll
mean?
see more of the seaside, seaside, Persipum, the succulent, and,
C. Purslane, okay.
Personally, sorry. That's what dominates that area more, and also some other, edges and hedges, I'm not sure. Have edges. It is. Anyway, some of the typical salt marsh plants that you see, that's kind of what's dominating the salt marsh area, which is what you'd expect. You don't see that, the crow's feet. The whole, exotic plant management, but during our FWC, or during our FDEP pre-application for the tilling, FWC was adamant that they wanted to use herbicide, and asking the question, as did Carlos Point, and they determined to decide manage that area. I will say that part of that may be due to or lack thereof of their tilling, and their tilling has always, just it last year and the year before is not as effective as I've seen tilling in other areas, whether that's equipment or methodology. Leave that to the experts, but I am disappointed that, herbicide is the solution to tilling. I think it would be better. I mean, it is a town-managed permit, and our agents to the property owners, and it's the property owner's purview to take care of their property. For mechanical treatment rather than chemical treatment to make up for lack thereof. Effective mechanical.
Well, are you thinking that there's something besides tilling? I mean, I know you can go ever from tilling to sifting, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you see the other areas, Castle Beach, Islands End, and the houses, you can notice the difference in the effectiveness of the tilling. Whereas theirs is still, there's a good amount of coverage that hasn't even been uprooted after the first tree. So if their tilling is doing that and they're still getting complaints, and the solution is herbicide, and that's where I feel like that's what's been propagating the side conversation.
They had presented the seawater option too. I mean, is that not effective while the birds are nesting? That's more of a pre and post nesting season?
I think that could be effective if the birds were nesting and it's not raining. But once it starts raining and you get that dilution, it's a tough thing, because I think that probably will require multiple saturation treatments, and in the rainy season you're just not going to get a chance to beat that volume of water. Challenge there. Now, like Mr. Bill said, during May and June, depending on the season, maybe you have a fighting chance. I really like the idea of the blowtorch. I think that's could be a win-win before, maybe trying that before the spot spraying with glyphosate to see if it can work. Ms. Eve said that a gentleman years ago used to use the blowtorch and walk transects and basically zap things before they came out. That's when the town had a lot more control of the area, and FWC now kind of takes off their area and nobody else is allowed in. My point is that both FWC and Carlos Point are adamant on using glyphosate if it were a farm.
We collectively oppose. I don't mean to speak for everybody, but
Yeah, I'm against it.
How hard would it be for us to find someone to go out and do the torches and get FWC's approval on it? Like, okay, so they're the only ones allowed out there, but why don't we?
We would still need to modify our permit to allow herbicide and or porch treatment, whatever you want to call that, because our permit right now only allows for tilling, and that was FDEP's answer to FDWC and Post Point's request to use herbicide was that you're not permitted to do it. Now, we would need to modify our permit. And then, so doing that preseason, okay, but once those exclusion areas are set, it would require, I believe it would require FWC's permission, and you would want to get FWC's permission to avoid any issues with like,
We approve like just doing the torches and not the herbicides?
could apply for a permit that only,
Only does the one.
right.
Okay.
And you know, it doesn't allow us to make any hard and fast rules against it. However, we can voice our opinion about, you know, FWCs and the please listen to us game, but you know.
Is there enough emergence of new plants between filling in the dry season to be able to maybe work on sterilizing the soil?
I don't think you're ever going to sterilize it. I mean, nature always has a way of so I think, you know, it's just going to be, it would have to be consistent treatment even while the birds are there. And the question is does FWC the risk disturbing the birds and possibly abandoning a nest in order to manage the vegetation? Then the broadcast spraying of herbicides, unless they were going to use some sort of pre-emergent where it attacks the seeds, and God knows how long those chemicals must last in the soil. Would have to broadcast before the birds were there or after the birds were there. But I don't know if that does much for feeding the vegetation while the birds are there. I guess you could really saturate the soil and basically scorch the earth and saturate it with so much Roundup that nothing would grow there for a while. Then, you know, rains a lot and sand is rains through there, so all that stuff gets washed out to sea.
What about
Or
just
this-
using salt? Just,
Sorry?
what about just using pure, like ionized salt or something and just
In
pouring?
the wet season, it's going to get washed out.
I know, but if we pile it up on the spots where those are, when we can, it wouldn't turn it into salt water as it goes for a little while.
I don't know if it has that much effect. I mean, too much rain.
We looked into what other coastal communities are doing? Eradicate?
I was going to mention this during the exotic vegetation management conversation, but I am signed on to a exotic vegetation management course, module, certificate, whatever you want to call it, to help write management plans and hopefully more about that. FWC guys that they brought in are very knowledgeable about managing vegetation, and that's what they came up with, was that document. So
They said that experiments involving crowfoot grass suggest an acceptable level of controls, possibly using water with an enhanced salinity up to 50% greater than regular seawater.
I don't know, once wet season hits,
Oh.
the need to probably do multiple treatments and in bird areas where they're trying to minimize disturbance.
I'm just thinking, I understand the challenges of the wet season. I mean, it doesn't rain every day during the wet season. And you know, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to create artificially naturally occurring ecosystem where or habitat where there are typically areas that get washed over, right? Which washes the vegetation away, and that's what these birds, that's the situation the way they like to nest. It almost seems that the best way to simulate that is kind of like Rob's suggesting is whenever we can to wash the area over with salt water and see if that retards the growth of things that are, you know, makes a habitat. Because eventually, even the things underground, even the seeds that are underground, are going to become less viable. Or if they sprout, they're going to be expending their energy to sprout, and then if they're inundated with salt water, they'll lose that energy.
I mean, I'm willing to try anything to try and find a solution other than
With the high salinity salt on the birds. So, I mean, salt can kill.
I mean, of course, they're shorebirds largely. They're used to environments, but it'd be saltier than they're used to. So
Has anyone looked at the effects of treatments on the birds?
I assume FWC's consider that. They're the biologists, and that's where the document came from.
Encouraging to me, based on what they're talking about here. Depleting the energy needed for growth, reduce photosynthesis, lower shoot and dry matter production.
Amazing about sand spurs is even some of those sand spurs in the areas where it was a little bit salty and ideal, you know, sand spur plant still manages to get out at least one stalk of spurs. Party.
Oh, well, I think the rafters to whack it down real good. I mean, I don't know if you're going to way to eliminate, attempt to eliminate it like you just to saturate the ground with Roundup. And if they're trying to do pre-emergent, then you're just seeding the sand with it just to try to prevent them from emerging.
I mean, even if, there's not water on top, that area is a wetland that's kind of moving back and forth with that lagoon, with tidal cycles, et cetera. So you have the CWA on one side and you have the Gulf on the other side where that stuff is,
Sure.
law of diffusions eventually.
I mean, if you just look at it without, all the in the clear, you say, do you want to be dumping glyphosate right on the beach? That runs right into the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, again, that's, we don't have control up Okeechobee or, the feeder creeks in Sparrow Bay, but we certainly have control over what goes on the beach. So having said all that, are we still in favor of sending a letter to Rebecca, basically telling her to attempt to use the other non-lethal methods or less lethal methods? Is a less...
Y'all are an advisory council, so I would say your job is more to advise council.
Okay. Well, she came specifically to ask our opinion and present it to us as the Marine Resource Task Force. That's why I suggested that we actually give her our written opinion. Because,
I think all of
because
her.
we can also go to town council as well and give them our opinion, which I don't know if we did yet. No, I don't think we did.
you can always write something up and send it to
Monday's
council
meeting, yeah, we'll go
and copy her.
Hmm. Also, we had talked about going to council and asking them potentially to pass a resolution that says that we prohibit, the use of Roundup on the beach, or in the EC zone, I should say. Can they make a resolution? Is it actually something that is possible to do?
You can, I'm not sure what the
What
nuances.
what kind of teeth does a resolution have?
It doesn't have any teeth, but my understanding of an ordinance versus a resolution is a resolution isn't necessarily enforceable, but it does the position.
But also remember now, we tried to put a glyphosate ban on. Well, we could not because the state preempted, they call it pesticides.
Correct.
It banned pesticides and they considered an herbicide to be a pesticide.
We can say that it be used only as a last resort after everything else has been tried and proven totally ineffective.
So my understanding, again, I think I asked this to Rebecca, but basically, they've used glyphosate in the past. Hot spraying.
Yeah, I would assume that they've done that, perhaps without the benefit of a permit, yes.
Years, yeah. Okay, so again.
My thought is just hand removal,
That's what we did with Audubon last year, and it was very effective.
But, we did it the year,
we did it
the year
Bill was there
before,
too,
and
yeah.
they came back the next year too.
Yeah.
I had a
yeah,
pickup truck
right,
full
they
of them.
come back, but
If you don't get those, those single plants early on, just duplicative, they reproduce. Very good at colonizing.
You can have them make the attempt anyway, instead of just defaulting to glyphosate. Roundup.
Yeah, I mean, seeing broadcast spraying of glyphosate personally, that's a concern to me. It's not something I would bring if I knew that a beach was being blanketed with that, I would not bring my kids there.
Right. 100%, yeah.
I think we should ask for the council to back us up on this. I think we should ask them for a resolution.
I mean, it's just a basically a town council recommendation is what it is, right?
And it might not be twofold, and the one that's hands-on, like you're gonna go pull them out by hand, and then something else that's a chemical thing.
Like follow after they pull,
Yes,
follow behind
it's like a twofold thing.
the salt water or salt.
Yeah.
The experts, so. I still believe we should give them our opinion on it, which they don't use glyphosate. That's my opinion.
We could start with the pat on the back. This is a fine
And then go to the
report.
town council.
This is grand.
Yeah, no, I think it's
This is
an
grand.
excellent.
The only problem is the,
Right, it's well-written,
Glyphosate.
factual, it's informative, but they should probably look at all these other alternatives that they suggested. I mean, they gave a bunch of great alternatives, I think.
I mean, you are an advisory committee, but you also have the ability to speak to anybody you want to speak to about it.
Sure, I mean, again, they came to us for our opinion of it. I mean, she
I
sent
would-
it to us, and
I would encourage you, and if you have consensus by your committee, and you can speak for the committee. If there isn't that consensus and you're speaking as individuals, and I'd also reach out to Brad Cornell too about it, because he was very interested in the non-glyphosate solutions. And of course, the Audubon Society, like in this case, FWC, they're advocate for the birds.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of expect them to lead more towards aggressive treatment to the good of the birds.
well, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we actually do send a letter to Rebecca Schneider that states that the Marine Resource Task Force loves their plan. However, we object to using Roundup for vegetation management in the Carlos Beach Temporary Refuge, and we prefer that they pursue some of their other methods that are less detrimental to the wildlife and the waterway.
that's good. We should thank them for coming to us and tell them we'll cooperate with them in any way we can.
A second?
That.
Any discussion? Any more discussion?
I do have a question. Has anyone heard of cornmeal peel off the seeds? It's a corn gluten meal off the seeds.
Heard of that?
Thing to look into.
Does it work, Jim?
I believe you just spread it on there around the plant and down. Lots of seeds. I don't know
Yeah.
exactly, but
Check it out.
A little bit. Okay, so that'll occur, and then how about with town council, that we want to request a resolution that they
I think it means more if we do.
support,
What do you
that they
think?
don't use glyphosate? I think so, we can
Yeah,
ask,
I think
you
it
know?
means it.
All they can do is ask.
Good tight.
In the end, is it up to the landowners in the end? Or do they need that permit from town and,
They need the permit from FDEP. FDEP permits typically, I don't know if field permits do, but administrative permits definitely allow for public comment once they're issued. So it would be another time when both individuals and or the town could comment on the issuance of such a permit to allow glyphosate use in. And furthermore to this entire conversation, I think it just sets a bad precedent that glyphosate on the beach, and then how do I go to other property owners that say, well, FWC uses it, why are you giving me a hard time?
well,
Right.
you know, they use it like crazy in Lake Okeechobee, right in the waterway.
Or they use it for like aquatic vegetation, right?
Exactly, yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of people not happy with that, but since Mr. Perry is here, do you know if anybody else is using glyphosate anywhere on the beach? I mean, not to know their names or anything like that, but
It's used occasionally illegal.
I know that, I can tell.
See the burns? Yeah, exactly.
To bring up what Chad said is quickly.
Mr. Perry, do you mind?
Sorry, yeah.
One of the driving forces why they want to use it so badly down there is the fact is that Carlos Point, the actual condominium property, allows a small part of their beach to be used in the nesting area. So that small part, I mechanically clean. And I do all the adjacent properties, and I do Island's End. The rest of Carlos Point, they do themselves with their own machine. Their machine, because they don't have properly trained personnel, do not know how to rotary till. So that's why they are pushing FWC, and they've already applied to the DEP for a permit to use Roundup. That's already in Tallahassee. Most likely they'll get it, unless you guys put a stop to it. They want to use Roundup because they can't till properly. And they're pressuring Rebecca, because they won't be part of the program unless they get their way. That's one of the issues. You go down there, I'm sorry, so probably most of you have seen the difference. The areas that are tilled properly, there's no issue. And I also bring up something that Bill said. In years past, down there, when we've had a washover because of storm activity in the Gulf, the crow's feet is basically almost non-existent. They definitely will be impacted by salt. They do not grow anywhere that floods. They grow in the highest, driest areas. The sand spurs are impacted as well. In years past, it was easy for us to clean up because there had been a major washover, a storm event. Bad for the birds as well, but it was easy for the cleanup. Areas when we don't get, years when we don't get that, crow's feet, they just go crazy. But the FWC really doesn't have an issue with the crow's feet like they do with sand spurs. And listening to everything you've said, the only reason why I brought up the idea of the backpack sprayer, because last June when I was down there working with their representative and working the areas outside of the compound, I noticed an 80-year-old lady who's one of the board members at Castle Beach out there picking sand spurs by hand before they had seeds and filled up 3 plastic bags, black garbage bags. I'm thinking to myself, and I called Chad while I'm in the tractor, I called actually Rebecca, I'm like, why aren't there volunteers down here? She's getting them before they go to seed. Why isn't there like 20 other people? Because this is when you get them. You don't go start picking them in July and August. It's too late. The birds have already been impacted. Sorry for going on.
Well, thanks for your input.
I think salt water, would be a great idea. You get a UTV or a tractor out there with a big and you're spraying it, it's salt water. Even if it's more intense, it's going to be diluted the next rain. But I've seen the results of salt water from the Gulf of Mexico and what it's done. You brought up a good point, Bill.
Okay, good. Okay then. Motion to request a resolution from the town?
Moved.
Objections?
What would be the text of the resolution, or what are you asking?
Basically, let's see here. What's it earlier? To make a request to town council to pass a resolution to prohibit the use of glyphosate vegetation management products in the town's EC zone. Basically, to prevent from, degrading the environment and putting our water away. Good?
And we can add that it's in keeping with our present ordinance. We can't use this chemical on the island, right?
Yep. Well, we can though. That's the
Okay.
problem.
Oh,
We
okay.
couldn't pass it. That
Oh,
one-
all
that
right, so
one-
you're not gonna put that in?
That one wouldn't fly, right?
Okay.
I think that went through, right? We had a motion in a second, okay. Okay, any other discussion on Carlos Point Beach shorebird nesting area management? Come on then. To exotic vegetation. We'd lead into this, I think I had mentioned to you, I went to the last council meeting to try to get some direction on that, and basically they said, go, go, go. Be open to anything we could do to help the exotics, they understood the need after we had done or had done, not us personally, of course, but the exotic vegetation survey, and the aha moment where, as we're thinking of how to get rid of them, the landscapers are putting them right back in. So they understood that and told us that they'd support anything that we could bring to them.
That is a continuing work in progress. I have a master gardener volunteer that is working on doing the Google Earth data, the colleague from his former business, and so that's still going on. I do not know where we're at in terms of creating a website, but there is that information. It's all been sent to the town that has that information if property owners want to access that. Under the Fort Myers Beach environmental section, we've been comparing, I created a subcommittee. That was the last meeting where I could get a subcommittee. So I have one Master Gardener volunteer, and I have one Sterile Island Garden Club member as my little subcommittee. And we've been reviewing plans. So we've been comparing Fort Myers Beach ordinances to Bonita Springs and Annabelle, and also Treasure Island, because here said, oh, Treasure Island's like our sister island. And we've been comparing them document by document. Trees that are listed on Fort Myers Beach is something that should be retained or concerned about are the exact same trees and vegetation as Bonita Springs. So there is that thing that some of the information from some of the communities has just been copied from other possibly northern Florida communities. They're not even us in southern. So it's like, okay. So I also have another master gardener volunteer looking at the trees, because that's not us. It's like those trees are kind of us, but not. So that's a whole nother issue of what's being specified in here. And then there's specifications, but the easy version, because the last meeting I said, oh, we're going to have low, medium, and high requirements. The low requirements would just be to say, oh, we're going to put in, we're going to take our current ordinances that we have and add in some enforcement and penalties. Just one simple blanket enforcement and penalty, and that would be the low requirement. And then the medium one is kind of what I'm still working on with the trees, and it is actually is a lot. I have to say, I don't feel 100% like I should be the person doing this, but my team is working on it very diligently, and we're trying to come up with something that would be a medium and high. But at this moment, that's what I have. And then Wendy was going to come up with some prices for removing vegetation. I did share that Australian pines are not something. Sanibel has a kind of a disclaimer notice about if people already have Australian pines on their property, that they cannot be taken down unless it's a situation where it's going to infringe upon a utility line or a neighbor's property or whatever. So I was kind of hoping we could still narrow down the list of what we might focus on in terms of reducing invasive plants, but at this moment, I'm still open for suggestions, comments, and support.
Rose, do those ordinances have lists of prohibited plants that you're not allowed to plant?
Yes. Annabelle, well, and Treasure Island, we compared Treasure Island, yes. Although Treasure Island's to the north of us, so they're kind of in a totally different section of vegetation, so they do have some, but I don't, you know. Annabelle has specific plants that are inhibited, and you cannot plant them.
Okay, well, ours, we have nothing like that. Correct?
No.
We just have recommendations of percent native.
We have
and
a
things like
lot of
that.
recommendations, and yes. And also the thing that I like about Treasure Island, even though it's to the north and it doesn't really, and a lot of my opinion is that it doesn't include plants that are close to us because they're in a totally different vegetation section. But what they have is they have a very nice 3-paragraph opening section that talks about their rationale for having this whole process of plants. And I almost send it to you folks because it's like, oh, it would be so nice. It just, and it's similar to us. I mean, we have a bulleted list of why we want to do this, but theirs is just, it's much more customer friendly, if that's the term to use. It's customer friendly. It's like 3 paragraphs, and it's like, oh, we want to do this because of the aesthetic value. It's going to increase property values. It's going to increase whatever. Just so much, yes. It's very, like I said, customer friendly versus our bulleted points of what we want to do. So we probably could do both.
Really, it's the format we're looking at, not necessarily individual species that are on there. Wouldn't we just replace those
and the
from
tree,
their,
the tree list has to be updated. And also, in Bonita, I mean, our Myers Beach Town Council has a tree list that goes on and on in the ordinances. It literally is pages. And in Bonita Springs, they have it as an appendix, which is probably not so bad, but it is the exact same list of trees. So
I come off of whatever the acronym is.
but see, it's not current, it is not the trees that are necessarily here, which is why there are Master Gardener volunteers working on that, because it's like, I think some of the stuff that is in our ordinances for vegetation was just kind of copied from other northern counties in Florida. And
Copy
so,
from probably Lee County.
County maybe, or even the
not
Florida,
even
maybe
Lee
even the
County.
state.
I
Is it the
think
state one invasive
yeah,
list?
these trees are not even around here, so it's like, okay, so they're kind of out there. And then some of the cities, because I've been comparing this, and my team has been comparing this, some of them have really good definitions. I mean, they have a whole section of definitions, and we have a section, we being Town of Fort Myers Beach, we have a section of definitions, different things, but other communities have a much broader set of definitions. For every single little thing that you could possibly think about that has to do with vegetation. So, and that is something that we might want to look at. And then the biggest thing is the enforcement. We have 0 enforcement on any of our ordinances. It's like, okay, you should not do this, but there's nothing to say, okay, if you do this, then okay, you didn't do it. So that is It is a big thing. And actually, the enforcement portion, in Sanibel, I have to say, has the most stringent ones, where they actually go in and say, if you are not following regulations on whatever vegetation there is, there's going to be a penalty, not only in whatever you're doing, but also in terms of a time frame, but also a penalty financially. And so, but that still goes in that hierarchy of what are we going to do, because, and like I said, this is like a work in progress. You can say, oh, if you got a permit to put in new pool or a new pool deck, and that is, requiring you to get a permit, and that's outside of your existing structure, which would probably be one of the better things that we could do in terms of enforcement and saying, okay, we're going to have that, and you've now asked for this permit, and so now if you do not remove any invasive plants, and we could say this, that, and the other thing.
Isn't that in our ordinance now? I mean, but it's only for commercial or multifamily.
Well, there is that if you build something new, you should not put in, or you should remove any invasive plants. But there's no enforcement or penalty. So yes, you should. If you bought a house,
you wouldn't be able to close your permit if you didn't. But correct?
no, that's not there. I can actually speak to that because he gave me that example that if someone buys a house or does some new construction, there is nothing in the current ordinances that says, it's like, yes, you should. There's no penalty if you don't. Correct?
Single-family residence is correct.
Correct. But for multifamily residents and condos and
Multifamily, commercial, and institutional, there is,
you need the land development order, right? And then
correct, chapter 10.
right.
But if you bought a house and you wanted to
Correct.
do something,
Right.
you
If
bought
it's
a
outside of the
piece
land development order, right?
there is
permit.
nothing that says you cannot have any invasive plants.
Right now, if you re-landscape a private residence, you don't have to pull a permit for that. Is that correct?
Right.
That is correct. Okay.
You need a permit to remove certain trees.
Supposed to,
Yeah,
if you remove
so-
more than 3 native trees.
Yeah,
year.
I mean, our tree protection ordinance is challenged on a couple different levels. There is that proviso, has to be a certain threshold, like numbers. If you have any sort of perceived or real challenges to beneficial use of your property, that qualifies for the permit, which is, on the size of our lots, is pretty,
Unless it's grown on the
doesn't
perimeter.
doesn't leave much room for anything to remain. And then there's a state statute that preempts local government from requiring, even asking for a permit if a certified arborist says that there is possible danger to property and or human safety. So,
Right. I think for me, it would seem that, again, if we're trying to rid the town or island of invasives, then somehow we have to prevent people from planting them in the first place. I mean, that's got to be the number one thing. And basically a list of plants that are not allowed to be planted on the beach. Brazilian pepper, let's say, Mexican petunias, the ones that we're trying to get rid of, and Schefflera. I mean, you can't. Okay, it's existing. Let's say it's one thing, but the other thing is to go out and actually landscape with all these again. As we're now surveying and then coming back and trying to put programs together to get rid of it. Like I said, some guy can say, "Oh, you're going to get rid of that? Here, I put it in my yard," right? I mean, literally. one guy's pulling out Mexican petunia, the other guy goes, "Oh, those would look nice in my yard," and there's nothing preventing him from replanting those in his place. So that's what I feel like needs to be put into an ordinance before even spending a minute attempting to get rid of invasive plants, because there's nothing, it's that example I told you, you're so busy mopping up the floor, you don't take the minute to turn the sink off, the flooding sink. So you need to stop the flow, and then you clean it up. That's my saying. Also, can you forward those ordinances to all of us too, so we can maybe
For sure.
read through them a little bit and have some more contributions for you, so you're not running solo over there?
Well, and like, I have a team and they're kind of working on it, but it's like, it is tough because we're trying to decide what is the most important things to go forward with. And
Right.
truly, it is just the basic that we need to add into the Fort Myers Beach, that if there's something that is new construction, they need to eliminate all the invasives. And then there would be a penalty if they don't. I mean, that's kind of like the bottom line. And then there's the next level of, okay, so we're going to look at that, and then we're going to consider the number of plants to put in that are native. Some of the city ordinances, looking at Benina, whatever, they're like 60% of native plants or drought resistance plants being put in. So then there's that whole portion of it. It's like, where we're going to go with that? Are we going to settle on that? Sanibel is pretty much 75% native plants. And we have to kind of look at what we're going to actually propose. The final resolution. But like I said, I do have people looking at the tree list, because the tree list is not, it's not Fort Myers Beach.
We just say, that what staff has done is in things that are coming before councils when we're looking at a potential ordinance, like they did it at Sanibel with the gas-powered leaf blowers. They just made a table of comparable ordinances and what the differences were. You can get an idea of where things, so at a glance, you can get an idea of what the difference is without having to go through and read every ordinance and compare them there. And when you do send something, make sure you send it to Chad and let him distribute it.
And it will probably be lengthy because it's a lot.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot. And I have to honestly say, I'm not 100% thinking that I should be the person doing this, but
It's okay to be brief and just summarize. You don't have to have every I dotted and every T crossed.
Why don't you distribute that, and maybe we can formulate something that's very specific or pieces out we need. Frank?
I would just ask, in reading chapter 10 with regards to the requirements that are of the commercial, multifamily, et cetera, those requirements something, don't need to reinvent it. Are those
Right.
requirements something
Extend
that just be
to
applied to
family.
single-family residences? Obviously, like the landscaping requirements and the parking and et cetera, some of those things don't apply or maybe a little bit too much of an ask. And all need to be cognizant of reality of the lot size relative to houses and setbacks and right-of-way, telephone lines, rural constraints on the island. But where are the, again, is what's in the LDO for those, the commercial and multifamily properties, could that be applied? Which things do y'all think could be applied to single-family residences, and just go through that code and, highlight and cross out or something, straightforward like that, and let's come back and see what's a good idea to carry over to single-family residences.
It would seem that, like you said, the multifamily and commercial, chapter 10 is really comprehensive. Like I said, you have to remove invasives, you have to replant X percentage of native plants, it was relatively detailed. I haven't read it
Limitations
for
on
a
the
while,
percentage
but,
of sod? Which
pardon me?
was- If there's a limitation on the percentage of sod,
yeah, I mean, stuff like that, and just extend, like you said, that to, family, but that would be new construction then? A lot of these, I think you have to, it has to evolve over time, obviously, as things, I mean, right now is a perfect time with all these houses coming down, these new houses coming up, I mean, that's
yeah, I mean,
how you progress.
up to y'all. If you want to, maybe you don't do it for interior renovations, but you do it if they're putting in a pool or, want to take down a tree or et cetera. Able staff to say, hey, you want to take down this oak tree, well, you need to also remove all the exotics as well.
Right.
I went to a property that, had a vegetation permit, and the picture as an example, I should have shared it with y'all. There's, carrot wood and Brazilian pepper, et cetera, growing out. They took the time to remove, other stuff, that stuff as well.
Right. Shall we move forward? All right.
I actually have a question.
Ooh.
I was
Ask
thinking,
away.
well, it's not really a question, it's just sort of an idea, nothing to do with ordinance. But for a pop-up, I would love something like maybe plant this, not that, flyer with maybe some pictures of different plants to hand out. Yeah,
Supposed to be working on it.
okay. And then
Thanks.
also I've contacted some of the garden centers and working with some of the managers to see if they would do maybe like a table or an end cap of to get more plants in, and so something I'm working on.
Hey. That's fabulous, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
If you want me to tell you some of the prices I found out about removing trees.
Right.
Sure, whip them out, let's hear it.
We're very general,
Yep, sure.
and landscapers all said, where's the tree? They want to go and put their eyes on the tree.
Right, sit back.
I said, they're all over the whole island. Well, we want to come to your house and we want you to take us to all the trees. I can't show you all the trees. I don't even know where. So I was able to pry some very general estimates out of a few people. And for the trees that are less than 6 feet, you can pretty much think that those are going to cost between $40 to $75 range. Those are fairly small trees, and most people seem comfortable with that. When you get to the ones that are 6 feet, there's a lot of considerations. The Brazilians can be really tall. They can go up to 70 feet tall. Not the Brazilians, the Australian pines. The Brazilian pepper trees are like girth, and it's more like a huge shrub, and so they have different things that qualify. So this one group that seems to be more national with a local, which I thought was interesting, their high ends are up to $3,000 for a couple types, and then between $1,500 and $2,000, and we're talking about trees over 6 feet. But again, these are very general figures that I could get them to.
Yeah, I'm imagining they're taking the, the real tall ones that are near utility lines and close to the house.
Well,
and
they
have to
talked
get up and
about,
top and
getting their vehicles in. I said, these are all just things seen from the street, so
just ballparking, yeah.
might have telephone. And when we got, well, you might have telephone, you might have this, you might have that, then, that's why they're so reluctant to give out estimates. So anyway, that's that hind end of starting try and clear us out of what we already have.
And just so you know, that, like we talked before, that's pretty much the budget buster. So I don't think with our budget, we can afford to go, inland, people to take off 70-foot Australian pines.
Right.
2 of them, then your annual budget's gone.
Right.
Well, and Australian pines are actually kind of grandfathered in. If you go to Sanibel's website, they're not kind of grandfathered in. If you have one of those on your property, you don't
You don't have to
necessarily
remove it, you're
was
just
all
not
for
allowed to
the
plant
have to
it.
have it removed. Yes, so there's that whole thing of what tree or trees we were going to focus on.
You said Sanibel has restrictions on removing Australian pines.
No restrictions, they have exemptions. If you have one on your property, there's an exemption.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, so
Yes.
existing, they're grandfathered, yeah. You
Yes,
can't plant them,
it is
but
actually, yes. Chapter 30. Chapter 30 on Sanibel's code enforcement is Australian pines, and you get to retain those. So there is that
One of the
caveat that,
arborists I
you know,
spoke
we need
to
to think about,
specifically
because
didn't want to
previously
touch
we
it.
talked about, oh, we're gonna pick a specific tree to eliminate, and it's like, well, Australian pine is not probably going to be it. We could do something else, but that would not be it. That's also something we need to think about, and also, there's still nothing on the website for Fort Myers Beach. We talked about putting the data on, we talked about, sharing Sanibel information stuff. We still need to get that up and running. I don't know what we need to do with that.
what do we need to do with that? Have you attempted anything, or what do we need direction?
I got approval from it. I don't know. It kind
Right.
of goes, I don't know. I don't know where that goes. It's like I got approval for us being Fort Myers Beach to share
Oh, from Sanibel.
from Sanibel to share some of those websites, and then now I don't know where we're at with that.
I visit with our PIO and find out what best means to do that. Who's our webmaster and things like that?
Yeah, I can follow up with Jenny.
Yeah. Put it on my docket to go sit down with her and just say how, I have an understanding what we want to do. What does she need us to do to help her? Help us
Right,
help
it's
you.
it would be under the Fort Myers Beach environmental site. There's like 4 specific sites, are on here, and then
Kind of content can we put up? How does she want it?
And
All that kind of
then
good stuff.
if we want to start talking about property owners being able to contact the town and look up their information for invasive plants, I don't know.
I mean, they can contact me anytime.
200 level, yeah.
Kind of getting closer as all those people start coming back that want to do that.
I'm a little bit reticent without specific direction to put up people's, what's going on in their yard, public domain.
And I think we agree that it's public information if you can see it. I mean, we didn't own their property or anything else.
I think a good starting point, though, is to communicate with them.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, it's through an advisory saying this is available and you can ask for it or something.
There
Well,
won't
we
be a
can
name
find
on
out.
the property, it'll just be an address, right?
Still, but people don't like to, find out
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
from the public.
Can we go back, Rosa? I want to ask you about why those Australian pines were grandfathered in. Is it because there's some redeeming value to them, or is it just because people said, oh, no, I don't want to remove that tree?
Probably cost.
No, I think it's just, they were there, and it's not for Fort Myers Beach, it's just for
You're right.
Sanibel. They were grandfathered in because they were there, and they've been there, and people kind of liked them, and
Right.
There's
Yeah,
definitely
we're
some,
not infringing upon their neighbor's property, their property, utility lines or whatever, then they are still,
You're telling them spend potentially $3,000 to cut, out of nowhere to say, hey, you
it's
need
a
to
lot
take
of
that down.
money to take down a tree, yes.
The root systems also are holding the sand, and even the pines that have come down and are no longer standing, they're holding back sand, which is helpful. And the guy I spoke to said, that wood is really good burning wood. That people, if they have trees or whatever, and the dead tree already, that the wood is good. He seemed reluctant to even, and he mentioned Sanibel. He said, Sanibel, they're kind of like it's a different story there. They're not family as
They weren't happy that they took those off the Causeway Beach over there.
Exactly.
A bunch of them, yeah, but it's, I mean, that was the only shade that was over there. But they're redoing those beach
He
islands.
said that's the most heartbreaking thing he ever saw, were those trees coming down, the lack of shade, the habitat that they probably were supporting, because they'd been there.
Yeah, we had our
But, you know,
fish,
I
There's
remember
a,
fishing club picnics there every year.
there's a story, I mean, from Marco Island, the
West,
old
too.
coconut island, that once they removed all of the Australian pines, there's nothing really holding the island together, and that's the story of the disappearance of Coconut Island.
Live oaks back in.
I've also heard that during Charlie, when Charlie came through, that
Oh, yeah.
most of the debris was Australian pine, so they had to remove from the.
That was my understanding. This is an eye-opener for me.
Key West had a big issue there. I think at Factory Taylor, there, they had a huge grove of them, and people loved the shade and picnicking underneath them, and they're just invasive.
But there's a movement, Save the Pines on Key West.
Right. Anyway,
Learn
Okay.
something every day.
shall we move on for the sake of time?
I, go grab some water.
Let me get you a bottle?
A bottle ready.
Sure.
There's an extra bottle right here.
Here you go, Chad. I think we got one. Look at that. Gentlemen, I'm gonna make a motion that we
It's
make
not cold, but that's.
Rob Howell, Rob Howell, the Murph member of the day.
Water boy?
Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor? All in favor? Okay. Man of the day. Okay, let's move on to dark skies here, and this will be, another report here from council. I went in front of council and I sort of said, well, you know, if we're gonna jump into dark skies, are we prepared for that? You know, is everybody gonna be prepared for that? Because as I shared with them our own Division 20 here lighting standards, that we have some pretty stringent, we have a pretty decent lighting ordinance. That's the best kept secret. I mean, I read some facts off of here, and there wasn't a single council person that was even aware of it. But what's interesting about it is in its applicability, it says all new luminaires, regardless of whether a development order is required. So that means that homeowners, single-family residents, anybody this applies to. So, you know, as we talk about the vegetation ordinance, that, you know, you have to pull a permit for any of this stuff to really apply. Well, here, this applies to everybody. And there's some exemptions, emergency lighting, outdoor lightings, where you've got a propane, you know, light, or, you know, old school light, kerosene or something. And there's lumen output, you know, requirements. So, for instance, parking lots, multifamily, commercial. There are basically any outdoor light needs to be fully shielded, fully cut off luminaire with recessed bulbs and flat lenses. Are the only permitted fixtures for outdoor lighting for our island. All those spotlights that are just sticking out the sides of houses, I mean, those are illegal on our island. So what I discussed with the council is maybe it makes sense as we work on dark skies that we begin to do an education program, as we discussed, I think, at the meeting also. We start, as part of the advisories, we start sharing with the general public that we do have a lighting ordinance, and these are some of the aspects of it. Because the problem is to their, you know, to any homeowners, you know, defending them, need a new light, they run out to Home Depot, lighting store, whatever, buy a fixture they think is great, and they come and they install it. They don't realize that there's even an ordinance. I mean, again, it's our best kept secret here. But even colors, you know, they have to be in harmony with the adjacent community, you know, so if people want to start putting blue lights, you know, and nobody else has blue lights on the block, technically, you can say, hey, you're not, you know, we don't like blue lights, this block or whatever, don't want it. But also, I think Chad had mentioned that just recently did they really start enforcing this ordinance on new developments even. Because if you read our ordinance, they need to have, submit photometrics, they have to actually, prior to closing the permit, go out there and do a light reading to make sure these lights aren't, you know, the lumens output is within the ordinance and things like that, which pretty sure hasn't been happening. Chad said in the last.
I'm not sure, you know.
You're seeing more of it though, you're saying, or?
I mean, I don't know what happened in this town prior to 2 years ago.
Sure.
So I'd hate to
I also, yeah, I mean, the point is this was codified prior to 2010, because basically, as of 2010, in existing outdoor lighting, so light pole, I mean, there's light pole requirements too. I mean, anything, you know, it's gotta be 12 feet, I mean, you just can't be putting poles up. Non-essential lighting, so any business that closes at 5 can't have any of their lights on outside. So if they have a sign in front of their place, that's gotta be turned off.
What about condos that have lights shining right on the,
They may make a case that they're in business, you know, so if they are leasing, you know, units, that somebody has to find the hotel maybe. If it's I don't know, real estate office that closes at 5, they can't have their lit real estate office sign on during the day. There's can only be downlighting on your sign, you know, no backlighting. Uplighting is completely illegal as well. So all those lights going up trees and all that landscape lighting is not acceptable either.
lights shining onto a sign that's upright?
Correct. Yeah, it's all got to be down. Actually, anything going up is not in keeping with our ordinance. So I mean, there's a lot of what we're after already here. So as we progress into potentially dark skies, I mean, the basis is here. I mean, I'm sure it has to be modernized. But it's literally all here. I mean, all the way down to tables of, like, again, what's your minimum, maximum lumen output you could have, or candle feet. And it goes in, there are some exceptions, like sensor activated lighting. I mean, that sensor cannot go off unless somebody's on your property. So like I was saying, as you walk down the street, walking your dog at night, and all those lights are, as you walk by, are turning, you know, floodlights going right out onto the street. I mean, that's not keeping with the ordinance, as well as it can't be on for more than 5 minutes after it turns on. And also, if you're only allowed a half a foot candle into the adjacent property up to 5 feet, I think, or 10 feet. But, I mean, light trespass is also addressed in here as well. So all those lights that are going across canals and bouncing off canals and into people's house across the canals, that can be stopped. So I think even to start, even before we even dig into modernizing this document and pursuing, again, laying out the whole steering document of how we go from A to Z to become a dark skies community, I think it starts with this, is to say this is what's current, and if you didn't know, you need to go out and find the downlit, you know, lights, and you can't have floodlights, and any light that leaves your property is unacceptable and things like that. Whoever wrote this was well on their way. Like I said, this had to have been codified earlier because as of 2010, the grandfathering period was over. So it's saying existing light fixtures must be brought into compliance with this code by January 1st, 2010. That was 11 years ago. So nobody was, you know, I mean, obviously that was about when I moved in here, so.
Once again, it's the enforcement and penalty. There's no enforcement.
Luminance levels specified in this code apply to all outdoor lighting. So technically, you'd have to have, you know, a code officer that has a light meter. Wow, yeah, but again, the point is that what we're going to do? Start sending these people, you know, code officer down the street and just writing up 75, 80% of the street. Street. That's not realistic. Let's face it.
We have responded to complaints. I mean, it has been
complaint driven, exactly. Which is, you know, a reoccurring theme, I think, with the town is that everything has to be complaint driven. So the thought was that we give our PIO again. I mean, I'd be prepared to do it here since we can't work together, but give her the, you know, what a off lens looks like, what these acceptable light fixtures are, and if you're going out buying fixtures, this is what you need. If you have a censored light, it can only go out, you know, you need to adjust it so that somebody has to step on your property. If your light is being broadcast past your property lines, that's, you know, you need to adjust your lights down or whatever you have to do. At least get people thinking about light as a, you know, as a pollutant and a, you know, light trespass and its effect on neighbors in the community. That's what I have for dark skies. You guys, I mean, is that a good approach to start our way into it? Because like I said, why are we modifying something that's out of the box, pretty effective. Then again, how do you get the word out? You have to educate, I suppose. So, for pop-up booth, I guess we'll have to get some content together for you to hand out. We'll put some stuff together and put that there.
Well, Jacksonville is doing a Lights Out initiative because of birds that are dying there.
Oh yeah, they have a
So-
lot of deaths there, don't they?
What are they doing for it,
Over
Jen?
100 million birds die.
Oh, no,
Like
billions.
Billions, right?
Yeah,
Light
billions of birds, collisions with buildings, yeah. Yeah, a year. They actually pile them up. For what, I mean, thousands of them. They even have events where maybe 3,000 will just hit St. Louis and just all be dead in the streets. I mean, it's really pretty rough. But anyway. So that was my approach to dark skies, is that we actually don't get into the actual certification until we begin these activities, and it's also not as big of a shock to the community as we move forward with it. Because again, it's going to be the same. We're going to have to go through that whole thing anyway if we move forward with dark skies. I mean, is that in keeping, Bill, kind of what we talked about as town council? I mean, it's like Rexanne said, I had no idea. I would just go out and buy a light. She said, I had no idea.
It's just like with the plants, right? There's
Right.
nothing at Home Depot telling you don't get the Mexican petunia.
Right. Well, what's something interesting about Home Depot is, I mean, they have class 1 invasives, right, that they're prevented even from selling. So are the ones that we're identifying as invasives not Florida listed? I know there's that. I don't know the acronym.
So you have category 1 and category 2. My understanding of category 1 is there's an actual measurable effect on native plant communities, whereas category 2, it's invasive but not.
Or invasive, whatever. Yeah.
Whereas there is also a state statute with a prohibited species, pines.
That's what I'm saying. So they can't even sell those. So I'm wondering.
Right, but,
so,
I mean, I was laughing
Mexican
and-
petunias are clearly not. You can buy those or.
Right, I saw umbrella tree on Marco at Winn-Dixie.
Right.
Marco has an exotic tree, so theoretically, just putting that outside may have been.
Sure. I mean, that's
But,
sure
to your
is.
point, you have the stores selling them, and
That's what I understand about the Florida category 1 invasive. I thought I thought I read that, and it said that you're prohibited even from selling them in Florida.
so that category 1, category 2 by the FLEPP
Right.
is guidance. It doesn't. I don't believe it has any regulatory authority, and they actually have in there about how it's to be used. Guiding tool.
Okay.
So it's worth a read.
Okay.
There
I read it.
There are species listed in Florida statute that are prohibited. It's not all of the category 1s.
Okay.
During the dark sky, there is an agenda item coming up on Monday's council meeting. Is to authorize FPNL to install roadway lighting on Crescent Street, 1st Street, 2nd Street, 3rd Street, and 5th Street from MPL in conjunction with the downtown sidewalk project. Now, the FPNL lights you're talking about are not amber. They're not available with FPNL.
What project is that?
Where they put all the sidewalks downtown, putting all the sidewalks downtown, they're gonna have lighting.
On is that
On
Crescent, the one next
Crescent
to?
Street, 1st Street, 2nd Street, so all, Old San Carlos and all the cross streets.
Those are town-owned streets.
They are town-owned, they're not county, but they're FPNL.
Okay.
It means we can't put anything because they're FPNL certified in their, corral of heads.
So it has to be on the FPNL approved product list, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. And you're saying that the town staff has decided that that needs to be white light?
The town, they were gonna put in white light, but with all these talks, they put it on the council agenda. So I'd like to hear what Murph thinks we should do. I mean, I'm probably gonna suggest that we wait until we get the head that we're gonna put on the rest of the overhead we're gonna put up and put them downtown as well.
I'm just gonna go on record saying, you gotta be kidding me that they would actually move forward like that. I mean, holy cow.
Did anybody listen to anybody over these
I didn't,
last
I gotta tell you, I got,
months?
you may know my radar is pretty high for lighting and, because of the Stewart Boulevard, project, but
If that
I
happens,
had no idea that that was even necessarily a project underway, that they were, that was part of the street.
I mean, if that happens, isn't dark skies like goodbye?
Dark skies, I mean, they could technically argue that it's further away from the beach, but then we've also heard, maybe they don't listen to all the testimony we've heard, that it's basically a bad idea to have different colors, and particularly go from white into an amber. So if you're on a side
Dark
street,
adaptation, sure.
you're on white and you turn onto an amber street, your vision is not going to be very good.
Yep, and it affects
the
the
bridge is gonna
elderly
be
more than
amber,
anybody,
right?
yeah.
The
we
Tantas
don't have
coming
any old
over is
people
gonna
around.
be,
But in reality, dark skies has nothing to do with amber lights. They help the turtles, they help the wildlife, yes.
Right.
But dark skies has to do with other, that's what I'm saying.
Good point,
So
it's
like-
more, technically, it's more astronomical as anything, it's about the astronomy, really, I think,
Right.
but also sky glow, I mean, frankly, the sky glow itself is a problem.
And uniformity too.
You don't need to have amber lights necessarily to be dark sky. They're kind of like,
That's what I was saying, that's what I'm saying, that's what I
but
meant.
they can't be white.
Right.
'Cause they have a limitation on that, which now,
200 now, I think, or something like that.
so, amber light is kind of like, dark skies on steroids.
Yeah.
Right, okay, well, thanks, thank you, Councilman Beach. I don't know, I mean, maybe we, actually, maybe we bring that up right now, I mean, can we insert that quickly here under dark skies?
Good idea. Well, it's not on our agenda. It's under dark skies.
It's under dark
though.
skies, of course it's on our agenda. So, I'll make a motion. Well, first of all, what are your thoughts on putting up White Street, we can commend the council for doing, that was gonna be part of my members' reports, to commend the council on their consensus to choose amber lighting all year for Estero Boulevard. Knowing that that has just occurred at the M&P meeting, and will be voted on, I'm guessing, Monday, at Monday's meeting. What are your thoughts on them installing white, probably 3 or 5 4K lights on the 3
Well,
streets?
I'm against it, and I would like to see uniformity, for the reasons that Mr. Beach said, also for aesthetics, it look nicer. I would like to see amber lighting.
The argument for not
What?
putting amber light or,
Well, they're not actually, you can't do it right now. We need to get them product list for FPNL.
Well, technically you could if you want to hang the crease.
I guess
And the
why,
spacing isn't a requirement, I mean, it's probably not a requirement, those are side streets too, you don't have to have 1 foot candle per foot either.
Aesthetically, since you're gonna go through and do all these streetlights all over Estero, same level of light on all of those, seems like it makes a lot more.
The economy of scale,
Right. Interesting. Any, we make any motions on the chairman talking to the council on Monday? You guys, is there anybody that is, let me put this, is anybody for white light down there? Considering everything else, we're gonna have amber
Absolutely
light?
not.
No reason for it.
All right, I'll make a motion that the chairman during the advisory council reports, include in this month's report or next week's report, that we strongly urge them to amber light as they've decided on for the rest of Estero Boulevard, and provide them then, of course, the reasons for that.
Stop all new lighting until the Estero Boulevard lighting is finalized, and then backdoor the other lights, because if they put one amber there and they put a different amber somewhere else, you're not gonna get the uniformity. So I would just say, no new lights until Estero Boulevard lighting is worked out.
Or you could simply say that have those lights match the lights that are eventually
Elected, right,
elected for
Estero Boulevard.
Boulevard.
Oh, that sounds good.
Okay, I withdraw my motion. I'll make it again. I'll make a motion to include in the advisory reports at Monday's meeting that.
You don't even have to say that you include it, you can just make a MRF recommendation,
Right, we don't have to vote on it.
or, if you don't show up, I can, it doesn't really.
Okay. Okay, so we're done there, I guess. All right, good. So, moving forward, how about the MRF brochure?
One more thing about it.
Have you really made the, you haven't really made the motion, had it voted on or anything?
Oh, do I need to?
Yes.
Okay, well, then I'll make the motion that we advise the council to choose amber lighting that is consistent with Estero Boulevard lighting for the lighting projects that are occurring on the north end of the side streets.
Let's just say all new, like, I mean, then also, what about Mid-Island or South Island?
Or what
Just
about
say
side
all new
streets?
lights be compliant with the,
You could say all the side streets.
Side streets.
Moving forward, because that's a whole nother project actually, is to come back and say, hey, all those 3K lights that were installed on the side
They could-
streets.
Foundation.
all new lights, just say all new lights.
Those were told by FPL to town staff, and I think even at a town council meeting, those were turtle friendly, the white lights, including the 3K lights that are at the access. That's another thing that you're gonna have to address, because that's not part of the Estero Boulevard project. I mean,
My understanding is they've been replacing or broken or bad lights, the old style with the new LED lights.
all the side streets, 254 of them were replaced in 2019. Everything on the side streets. I mean, I think there are some that weren't identified or were on private property, but yet they were FPL. But I would believe that those would be replaced by white LEDs, yeah.
So, we're gonna do a motion here.
But yeah, I'm gonna remove my earlier motion and make a new one. So I'm glad, so nobody second anything, all right, because then you're gonna have to remove it. So, make a motion that, during the advisory board reports, at the next, council meeting, that we advise the town council only consider amber lighting, when replacing or adding any roadway lighting on the island.
I will second that.
Any discussion? Objection? Carries unanimously.
Sure.
I did want to add one more thing before we move on about the dark skies.
Yeah.
So I know we're kind of talking about like, essentially the education of it for people on the island. Could it be something, like, I know we're not making any talks to city council yet, I know we're not really moving forward on it until we get some of the other things done. But do you think at the pop-ups or just in general, maybe have something on the website where we are, blow it up in a positive way. We are looking to getting Fort Myers Beach as a dark sky certified beach. What that means is more stars, more safe wildlife, go through the positives. What that means for you, it means, you will be affected with your property lighting, kind of go through what it means. So even if it doesn't happen for a while, or even if it's something, just let them know that, yeah, we're talking about, I mean, obviously we have these, and people who are really interested can come ask, but just education is the way to go always for me, so I'm thinking
Right.
like, play it up, like, we want to do this, what are your thoughts, like, how hard would it be as you as a citizen to do this, or what would you want to do as a citizen to help with this, or
Right. Well, we do have these are being handed out at the Merck Pop-up.
yeah, and that's a big part of it.
Yeah,
And then
that's
a
dark
discussion
skies.
follows.
And usually
Cool.
discussion, yeah. So outdoor lighting, crime and safety, and how that applies to dark skies, light pollution, and
Some people know that
wildlife.
we're leaning towards trying that.
Correct,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And
Is
also your
that on the
health.
website?
Pardon me?
Area on the website that includes this dark sky information?
No, but
No,
that
not
can
yet.
probably go onto the environmental page.
Being with Jenny.
So, yep, I can actually mention that too. I mean, yeah, I think it's just gonna be a matter of content, that's always what they're after is content.
Get people excited about it, because it is a big deal to have that certification. It's not easy, especially nowadays.
Yep. Excellent input, Rob, thank you. It's all about the education. Okay, so now moving forward, 447 to the MRF brochure. Any advancements?
So I had been doing my own little drawing up, and then Bill said you were talking to somebody that had much more experience on computer-wise, right?
Oh, I was waiting to see what you said. You're gonna send me a picture of what you've been working on.
Well, I'll be honest, like, so I had it drawn up, I had it nice, I actually did go on the computer and have it, and I showed it to a couple people, and they're like, that's not good. So, I got a little, like, discouraged from it, so I could still show you what I had, but it's essentially like, it's a map of the island in old style, and then there, like, it looks like an old drawn up, not a pirate map, but, you know, it just have that kind of, like, art,
Old school.
antique look. And it had a few, like, dots on it where just some of the main parts of the island, you know, Bowditch Park, Times Square, some of the Mound House, and some places like that, where it had a history area, and then it had like nature sites where you can go to see specific things. I added some stuff about the Atala butterfly, which is doing awesome up at Bowditch right now, and so like little things like that. But I don't know, it just couldn't get it to flow right. It's you know, something I hadn't done before, and I thought I could try it, and the people I showed were like,
No.
I'm sorry if I dropped the ball on that.
No, that's okay, because I kind of went down the same road myself.
It's a hard nut to
Well,
crack.
yeah, I mean, I think more it's about the format we want to use. I think once we decide what format, like Bill was saying, do we want the state park sort of look to it?
That's what I
or
was
do we
trying to
want-
go
If
for.
that's the case, then we can get, you know, professional probably to,
You know, you can look up ordinance maps, and those are really nautical and cool. In fact, they sell, and there's an artist that prints them out and frames them and sells them for hundreds of dollars at Lover's Key. They're very popular, and
nautical
that
maps,
can
did
be
it say
used as a,
ordinance?
sorry,
Ordinance maps?
did I say ordinance?
Yeah, nautical?
No, yeah, it's,
Charts, like
Charts,
yeah,
charts.
yeah.
charts, yeah,
Oh.
really cool.
Mine looked like an old timey chart, because I was going for the look of like antique and like nature, like adventure, and that. So one side would have been that
Oh,
with
yeah.
the sites, and then the other side would have been about native. There would have been a native plant section. There would have been animals that are unique, animals and plants that are unique to this area, and there's a whole section about mangroves and beach dunes and things like that.
How does that
lighting.
sound?
What does our council liaison think about that? What, I know you have been
Wanted to see for a while.
experienced, and, well, I mean, you've also had experience.
I've been in contact with two different people outside of the town, two different groups, and one is FGCU. We had a little bit of miscommunication because he was thinking more of this kind of map, and I was thinking something grander, more like the national park style, which is quite a bit larger and has a lot more room for the information. And he was going to make it a student project. But I needed to sit down. I was gone for a little while. I need to sit down with him, and my idea is going to be down with the students, figure out what stories we can tell, and then have different students work on different sections of it, and then have them put it together as a school project. The other is the Charlotte Harbor National Estuary Program, which is now Coastal Heartland's partnership. They're good. They have fun. I'm hoping between the people that put it together and the people who, with the funding, that I can maybe put those together and come up with something that would not only be used here, but maybe be something they could recreate in other jurisdictions,
Right.
their natural areas. So, we're working on it.
Oh, man, go. That's
We're
why.
working on it. And I wanted, to that end too, because that's one of these things where if we can do this right, then it will get legs outside of our area, that it can be spread around the state and be able to provide this information to a lot of different people. I was at this conference, and someone from saw my shirt and said, you're from Fort Myers Beach. They were from Delray Beach. The story she said is that she heard about our plastic straw ban, and she went to the people in Delray Beach to say, I think we should do this here, and I think we should have a straw ban. The first question was, well, is anybody else from Florida doing this? She said, yes, Fort Myers Beach, and they actually used our ordinance as a model. So, and that's just one municipality, and Delray Beach is like 10 times our population. So,
You should be the Murphy winners.
so and I know sometimes it's a real pain being a pioneer, like with the lighting, with the dark sky, with all the other projects. But if it does work, it has a power outside of our own town.
Yeah. The objective there too, yeah, so.
What's a
That's great
time
to
frame
hear.
that we're looking for? Get something.
I've only been working on that for like 6-7 years, so
I'm constantly asked at the pop-up, do you have any information on Murph and you, and
We
am I allowed to give these out until we have new ones?
If we have any left?
You have any left?
You, okay, yeah, by all means, give out what we have, and there's other things, there's that Be a Beach Hero, there's a lot of really good brochures out there, and I will be diligent to try to move this forward.
I'm sorry, I dropped the ball on that.
That's perfect.
I would also suggest that we have inserts that we can put in on the different projects that we're working on. Something that can slide right in.
Little printouts, like, yeah.
Yeah, it's not really about Murph, though, it's about the environment of the island. And
Right.
it also, the other idea, the other kind of selling point is it's also, it's a public safety element. Had this, I mean, I would love a big sign like everyone saying, don't let your kids chase birds, because in the last week or so, we've had these great migratory flocks, 1,000 birds out in this little
Yeah.
sandbar, and constantly being chased by kids.
Well, Murph does work on projects that, environment, so that's something we could get out.
We do a moving pop-up that follows the flock of birds, they move down.
Right.
Oh, but that's good, because the Master Gardener volunteers could put up something and insert that on plants and native vegetation. That's kind of where we're headed. And it could just be a little flyer that sticks.
There's another project, I think I'm gonna mention this to you, that most vacation renters, the idea, we've talked about is education is hard because you have so many different targets, residents to vacationers and to day trippers. And most of the vacation rental places get a 3-ring binder that has information on Wi-Fi codes, recommendations on restaurants, and it has some, like Turtle Time has some stuff in all this. And one idea I had too is to expand that, make it so now we're not restrained by a small brochure. We can have pages that talk about turtles, to talk about birds, to talk about, dune plants, all this, and really tell the story and make it a valuable education tool. It's another project that's kind of at its infancy. We'll see if it comes back for Murph help.
Job, Councilman Feach. Getting a motion for a second. First member of the day. Okay, let's not get crazy. Okay, let's move on here to Pure Wildlife. We promised to get that on the agenda here.
Thank you. So, the pier is getting, in my opinion, just out of hand with treatment of wildlife, with the just constant laws being broke up there. I need help trying to think of some ways that we can, even if it's more making beach patrol more alert up there, or go up there more frequently, just birds being fed, birds being pat, birds being caught, sharks being tormented, rays being tormented, fish being tormented. Just any animal that touches that pier is just in a constant barrage of this. The feeding the birds, the getting them hooked all the time. It's just a negligence that is unnecessary there. And it's getting out of hand. There's no repercussions for people doing these things. Other signage, but it's sad. Like, you go up there and it's just, I don't know if the last time anybody was up there, but I was there this morning, and it's just, every time I'm up there,
What's going on?
something's going on. There was somebody had a fish on a hook by hand, throwing it at an osprey that was sitting on top of the thing, trying to get the osprey to take it. Osprey went for it a couple of times till I stopped him. It's just absolutely appalling. And I know we can't, stop certain things from happening, but having someone up there more regularly, or something that we can do to do that. And I think that kind of leads into the next thing, where I've been talking with law enforcement, whether it's the sheriff, Lee County Sheriff. I haven't really reached out to Chad too much about what the beach patrol's allowed to do.
County
Or the county
facilities, the number one issue, yeah.
But even if it's not the pier, but then, like, there's all types of littering issues, live shelling issues, and then speeding issues on the island, that there are situations where there are not citizen deputies, but citizen patrols that are able to issue citations for certain things that are city ordinances, not necessarily breaking laws of the city, but if they're an ordinance that they're breaking, even if it is also at the same time a law, doing it so citizens can write citations for some of these things. And the three big things I'm thinking of are live animal molestation, littering, and live shelling. Even if it's, because the police officers I've spoken with, they said that the situations they know of, instead of just saying enforce whatever, they have specific things that they are trained all on. They know all the laws, they know inside and out the ordinances, and they are able to write citations for specific types of things. So they're essentially deputized in a way.
Right.
I can't think of a better term for it. There's like an acronym for it, but trying to work with Beach Patrol or the city that we can.
Yeah, you talked to the sheriff and that's what they told you, that you could,
Yeah, so I've thought about this a little bit. I went up there and checked it out and everything. So there's signage there. There's some turtle signage. So what to do with turtles? Birds. If you hook a bird, I think, and
I've also
something
been-
about being a good sportsman. There's one there in the center. There are old signs.
I've also been supplying the store with the fishing regulations and some brochures that we give away at the handouts at the pop-up, so.
And I mean, obviously, like, for me, I agree with you guys, but the people who are reading those things
Right,
and abiding by
right,
those
right.
laws already know.
Outside of enforcement, outside of actual enforcement, that's all you can rely on is guidance, which would come from the sign. So I don't know,
Maybe newer signs or something,
maybe you can go to
more
the county for
apparent.
that, but also there's rangers, right? There's rangers that are in Lynn Hall Park. They stop by the Murph pop-up booth all the time, so they're the ones that should be up there enforcing that,
If we can
correct?
get them to go up there more or something, like
Yeah,
high
They're
traffic
always
times.
around, they're always around.
Those are Lee County employees, right?
I've been up there, so I do beach walk every morning, from Bowditch down to the pier and back, sometimes more than once, and I've not seen a ranger. I've seen Beach Patrol. I've not seen a ranger at the pier one time.
Place.
Where do they hang out at Lynn Hall Park, or the ones that come to the pop-up?
They're about it,
Just not at
and
the
they're at
pier.
Lynn Hall Park, and they're just, keeping an eye on people and
Parking lot,
in
huh?
the parking lot and just walking around.
Bathrooms and stuff, I suppose, but you'd think they'd be able to, like, usually if you're on a beat, you're going to the pier every, whatever, you make these.
I
whatever.
have seen them.
I'm not saying they're not there. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like,
Probably not when the bad behavior is
it's
taking
always when
place.
nobody's around. Like, even, like, I know I look like a ranger, but I make it very clear if I'm around there that I'm not law enforcement. I'm just an educator, and I'm just here to, say, like, you don't want to feed these animals. And the times that I have caught somebody trying to just cut the line when they catch a bird, don't, reel it in. I go down and untangle it or whatever. And then I point at a sign, it's just really hard for me personally being up there and seeing the animals being treated this way on a constant basis.
Right.
Just constant basis. So if there's something we can do is, not becoming Beach Patrol, but getting some type of ability to enforce city ordinances and write citations, I think it might be a little more effective if we have a small group of people that are, whether it's us or someone, not necessarily enforcing the laws, but being able to do some type of citation for live shelling, animal, those negative animal interactions and the littering.
Yeah, it actually came up earlier, and I can't remember who brought it up, but deputizing, it was Doug Fossum here was suggesting that maybe we deputize citizens to be able, the ones that are on the beach all the time, to say, hey, you can't,
And then obviously, we'd go through some type of check for it and.
well, you have to
look
do
into it,
something,
yeah.
because otherwise it'd be just labeled vigilantes.
Right.
People
I
don't want to
believe
be
Beach
told they're
Patrol
doing
may be
the wrong
hiring.
thing. You're
I
opening
applied.
yourself up for a lot of trouble.
But your issues are FWC, not Rangers, not Sheriff. That's FWC jurisdiction.
So when I call FWC, they say it's the sheriff. When I call the sheriff, they say it's FWC, and it goes back and forth like that.
That's Lee County, right?
Then,
So
yeah, they say
rangers.
Lincoln County.
W of FWC Wildlife?
So FWC has I think 3 or 4 officers that are on our island stationed, and they also have to patrol the other areas, and they only have 2 boats or something. So I know they're stretched thin.
Yeah, you can see 'em in the back.
And I get it. No, you're right. You're 100% right. But every time I call FWC about something like that, either I don't hear from them back, or they're like, yeah, we know of the issue.
Right. But the issue is, what can actually MRF do about it? I mean, what can we do about it if we don't have jurisdiction there? We can't advise the council because they don't have jurisdiction there.
Instead of giving out citations, we could be, you know, goodwill or good stewardship, you know, and go out and, you know, have, if you see someone cutting a line while they're fishing off the pier, send them just a little slip, just
I mean, beach,
educating instead of, you know, being so assertive or, you know, in the hand.
I mean, whenever you're out on the beach, if you're trying to educate and you feel like it's just, yes, you can't call base. I mean, they're,
But they don't have jurisdiction on the pier. I mean, that's sort of where this,
yeah, no, the pier, I forward you the pier contacts. I don't know if you've contacted Recreational Park and Rec. That would probably be the first go, you know, squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah.
So they are, that Park and Rec staff theoretically should be. Like the ranger.
Would you be able to forward me the base number also? Please, thank you.
this hotline.
Yeah, I've only ever called Lee County Sheriff and FWC. I didn't even think to call the recreation, because I thought, I knew it was a county thing, so I didn't know if it was
I
Parks
know
and
too
Rec.
that, you know, because we once made shirts, you know, that said, ask me a question.
Yeah,
So when
yeah.
Murphy's like walking up and down the beach. But, you know, they have, I know the, was it the Shum Museum on Sanibel, they have like intensive classes on shellfish and identifying them and all that. And they're pretty much told they walk the shirt, they wear shirts, they walk on the beach, but they're told not to approach somebody unless they approach them.
Right.
And from my own personal experience, you know, I used to talk to people about almost everything. Now it's got to be something pretty extreme to really want to go talk to somebody. You never know how they're going to respond.
Right.
And, you know, without, I mean, like the beach patrol guys and the sheriff, they are experts at de-escalation. You know, I know from experience, I am not.
Rile everybody up.
Well, you know, when something you really feel, if you feel strongly enough to go and talk to a stranger about it, you know, you're already maybe at a level where you're not ready to de-escalate.
I always, like, for the live shelling, for example, I always use that as an educational experience to say, hey, can you tell the live from the dead? You know, for sand dollar specifically, do you know how to tell the live from the dead? And usually they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. But what was it? It was just Tuesday, yesterday. I had a couple that was walking past, and they had a whole pile of sand dollars. I said, hey guys, put those back. You know, they're still alive. Oh yeah, we're just gonna look at them here a minute. I see them on my way back in. They have even more, and they're definitely leaving the beach. And I'm like, you guys got to put them back. You know, so they tend to, but it's just like, now I know I can call base and stuff like that, but it's even some people that know these laws, you know to not cut the line and not live shell. It's just they're still doing it. So that's why I'm thinking.
Now, one thing too that you can pick up that we had, it was completely different staff at the time. But we made up, were you, Mary Rose?
I think so.
We made up like little handouts, and the idea is you take the major violations like shells, and in the front it says, you know, what the ordinance is and what the fines are. In the back it says why. So it's not like a citation, but it's an educational tool
I
when you
think
see
they're
it.
out there.
I might grab a few of those then.
I don't know
like
if those are around because I think they didn't go anywhere. Whoever was in, we're gonna make them so they're available to Beach Patrol, and whoever was the boss of Beach Patrol at the time didn't want them.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking, is something that's just like a little slip that, whether it, or a little card, whether it says, you know, if you see someone with a dog off leash. If you walk up to them with a smile and put out your hand, usually they take it.
They just take it.
Yeah, and then it's in their hands. And then you can just say, there's a little bit of information for you to maybe enforce them, but, you know, it's something that they can read, and then it's less intimidating. Walk away and look.
Like that, Jen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we could do something like that. We could do something, dogs off leash or live shelling.
Yeah.
The other things that you were
Okay.
discussing, you know, please don't.
No, that's why I brought it up
Cut
to you guys. I
line.
wanted ideas, so
Yeah,
that's
please
all. I
don't
like
cut
that a
line.
lot.
And we can make cards, you know, just maybe little cards with the different
Like
information.
a 4x6 type of
Yeah,
little.
you have something that we can, you know, easily have and put a rubber band, and if we see someone doing that, we just walk up and say hello.
I can send through Chad what we had in the past.
Okay,
You think that's a good idea?
I do.
Does anyone else like
Like
that
that.
idea?
I mean, it's something. It's something.
I like that
I do.
approach of.
I like talking to
informing
people, like
Yeah.
just telling them
Yeah.
face to face, like, stop doing that, but.
I'm just worried about, the only thing with that is I'm worried about getting the people that take it as an insult and then they just toss it.
You know, I
Okay,
find that most
biodegradable.
people that we
Yeah.
talk to at the pop-up on different, experiences, and like for the lighting, so many people just don't know, they
That's a
just
lot
don't
different
know.
though than going up to these, grumpy fishers up at the pier when they're doing their thing in the way they've always done it. And then trying to teach them.
If that's the kind of experience you're having, then you certainly need to get a ranger to go and address that.
I think we can make sure these are printed in a way that they,
More friendly.
decompose also, so if someone doesn't throw them, they don't become
Right.
trash
Yeah,
for long.
like a little picture of a dog off, on a leash. Shells in the ocean, like a little, I don't know. Just
No, I like that, Jen. I really do. Thank you.
We move on?
Thank you, guys.
Oh,
got
I
it.
do have a question though. I wasn't sure what the pier wildlife was. It wasn't here at the last meeting. But what about it's county. Never mind. Well, how do we ask the county to replace those signs? Those signs are really in bad shape on the pier.
I don't know, who's their contact
Parks and
there?
Rec, you said, right?
Ed, do you know, at the county, who would we go to say, hey, you need to update those pier signs?
I just emailed Rob the contact. I can forward that to all of y'all.
Is it Parks and Rec? I can reach out to, I'll take that on.
Yeah, basically Lee County Park and Rec, and then there's a contact page for Lynn Hall, which is, the pier is a part of Lynn Hall.
Perfect,
And don't be afraid to reach out to Commissioner Ray Sandelli, he's our representative.
right, it's a good one.
They just
Hooray.
redid the whole resurfacing of the pier. I think they'd redo the signs.
Yeah, that's a good point, they just did a ton of money in there.
I'll reach out to them tomorrow morning.
All right, good, so let's move on to the Good Citizen Award. Hey, Kay Murphy, we need some.
I have one.
I have one too, and I've never had one. I'm so
Oh,
excited.
wait, that, we can do that after. Are you talking about the,
Just, yeah, well, there's that, and then after this agenda item, if we can circle back on the vote. I think we forgot to vote on chair.
I have that up here too. We won't
Sorry to interrupt.
adjourn.
Go ahead. You jumped in first.
Oh,
You
I'm
do yours
sorry.
first.
You go ahead since it's your first one.
It's my first. I know. There was
no,
a
you go
company, Dynamic Pest Control. They were actually tenting a house. They're actually a multi-unit place. And then as they were taking it down, there was a whole bunch of garbage. And not just like a little garbage, there were actually garbage bags floating in the canal, like 3 of them, filled with trash, plus miscellaneous other garbage, and they hauled them all out of the canal and pulled them up. So
Pushed them out and threw them in the trash.
And they did that on their
Wow.
own. Did you ask
Did you get a
them to do it?
photo?
I do have photos. I have photos, but yes, I did ask them.
Photos, okay, good.
But yes, I asked for their help because it was great.
Excellent, excellent.
Okay.
Okay, so Bodie is age 7, and he lives in Massachusetts, but his family and him have a house here as well, and they stay here. He always loves sea life and sea creatures, and loves watching educational shows about sea life regarding sea turtles and manatees and sharks. And he's learning a lot about the different sea life, and he chooses every Halloween a costume to represent a species of wildlife here. And this
Wow.
year he chose a sea turtle loggerhead costume. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, that's so cute.
It's so cute, Steve.
Oh, dear God. That's adorable.
There you go.
I'm gonna go in the bank.
And he's been wearing it in his neighborhood, educating his friends on sea.
Like America's Funniest Home Videos, it's always gonna be a kid or a dog who wins.
Nice presentation, but until we vote, it's not. Does anybody else have
How could you count
we
it?
still have an extra one in the bank too. I think you.
Yeah, we have a live seashell one, yeah.
Okay, so I just wanna make sure I have
Jennifer,
that.
where does Bodie live?
Massachusetts,
Oh,
but
Massachusetts.
they
Thank
come during season here.
Right.
Yeah, summer breaks and stuff.
Halloween, obviously.
Okay, so, we have 3 to vote on today. We got one in the bank. We have, dynamic pest control. We have Bodie. We have a live,
Sand dollar, being
$10
put back in.
returner.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would just say that I like mine because it's October. and
Exactly.
Halloween.
yep, that's the one.
Yeah,
We're not as dumb
I
as
know,
we
I'm
are.
giving it to you. I'm for your kid.
okay. So, all in favor of Bodie? Say aye.
Aye.
I guess that's it, okay.
That puts 2 in the bank now.
It is, which is good to have.
But your sand dollar one, you were writing an article for the Beach
So I did
Observer.
seagrass.
Seagrass, yeah,
Grass,
she's written it
okay. I kept
actually and
thinking you were
already
writing on
submitted it,
sand
thank goodness,
dollars,
thank you,
okay.
thank you.
Did you read
Yours
it?
was actually submitted, but they, like Bill had warned me, sometimes it doesn't, you
It's
know,
coming
they hold it,
soon.
yeah. I was surprised not to see it in this morning's edition, so.
I think your last one, the little boy with the trash, the garbage collector.
Oh, making friends with the,
Yeah.
Everybody likes to
yeah.
see a kid, so,
Nice
you
big
know, I know how
picture.
you work.
Which month am I to write an article?
Since we're on the subject, I will tell you.
January, I think.
You're right, so March, so July, goes Wendy, Rob is next, and what month is that then? That would be, December, right, because you wrote November's technically, actually.
I gotta write December. By what date was that again?
December 1st would be great.
To be done, oh, yeah. Okay.
Yep, at the first of the month, and then we start over, I think. Really. So, we can do that next meeting, how about that, since we have 2 going. Should we do that, or would you like, somebody like to know? Yeah, I'll make a new sheet for myself here. Be better prepared. Okay. All right, so 2 items left. One is, actually, we'll do the election, the voting. So, I haven't done this before, but basically I think we say we'll take nominations for the chair. Anybody that would be interested, you can nominate yourself, certainly.
Second that.
Steve.
Yep.
1, 2, fourth that.
Everybody opposed?
Deer in the headlights, like, no. Any other nominations?
Steve.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion carries. All
Maybe
right.
we should have asked him if he wants to keep it.
Yeah.
No,
Well, I
don't
mean, it's
ask
good to
him.
get new blood in there, but,
You're doing awesome.
And congratulations to all the people that just got re-elected or
Appointed,
re-nominated
right.
from the
yes,
council.
actually, all these sitting Murph people that were renominated, I guess that happened recently, I missed it, but. Okay, now for vice chair,
5.
any nominations?
Nominate Dr. Fossum.
Second that?
3rd, 4th. Yeah.
Aye.
3rd and 4th? Okay, no more nominations? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
done.
Nope, motion carries. Oh,
Nice committee.
everybody moves along. I was hoping I'd get a knife in the back of my neck today. Somebody walked by, oh, take out the old guy. Okay, so last but not least, I guess, we didn't touch on this, and this was really as an FYI more than anything.
Yeah, so, that's the webinar that, can I borrow your copy?
Look at mine too, but they also have a document that explains all of Jeff. This is probably more informative.
It's a
huh?
more wordy document. I thought that this was a little bit easier on the eyes. Sorry about the flipping. But, so right now, FWC is in a commenting period for its imperiled beach nesting bird species, oyster catcher, snowy plover, black skimmer, least terns. These guidelines are going to have significant impacts on activities, both private and town sponsored, such as special events, beach raking, any structure that you'd want to put permit out on the beach, such as a walkover. So I thought it was important. Jenny did put out a social newsletter, etc., just letting people know, hadn't already, to, it's kind of speak now or forever hold your peace with regards to this. One thing that's a little bit difficult is they have a online tool that is going to be available to the public can look up where these areas of historical nesting and or roosting, where those are at. Right now that tool is not available, so it's difficult for people to see how they may be impacted by this. So that's one thing. There, again, if you look at, I believe it's page 32,
Off here, 36 maybe, you're talking about the financial contribution?
yeah, so you can see, if you're happen to be in an area where, there's a flock of least terns or something like that, and you want to do something, you can see that there may be, significant financial repercussions. Economic drivers, special events that are economic drivers for the island could be impacted. So it's just, food for thought. I can send the links to all of y'all, that they are available, I believe, on the website newsletters, where you can see the guidelines. And the 17th is the cutoff. Maybe another has been in touch with FWC, and he may have something to say during public comment about this that may be pertinent, but I think it's worth everybody's attention, regardless of how you feel, to comment on this, because it will have impacts on beachfront property owners and the town itself.
Because Murph, there's really nothing we can do besides take private action, correct? And weigh in the comment section?
Yeah, I mean, you can advise council. However, I think the timing of council meetings, et cetera, that's October 17th. Next council meeting's October 18th. So it's going to be difficult to get anything in as a town. There may be opportunities at a later date to maybe put in some commenting.
The town manager's aware of it, I'm guessing, so could he contact the council himself? And so, like I said, I just quickly read this. So what, the impact on the beach, really, our nesting birds are really only on the south end, correct? I mean, I know there's sometimes, even at our access, we see a snowy plover.
I mean, there's some at Bowditch. There's nesting activity at Bowditch. It is.
That's not a I mean, that's.
5 documented it.
Okay, 5.
Go back 5 years.
Well, I mean,
so my understanding of this is that if you want to pull a DEP permit to do some type of
special events, beach raking,
raking too, yeah.
Any triple CL permits for structures.
And do they have to survey the property and say, okay, you have 4 breeding pairs here, and then you go down your financial contribution, because it's up to like 10 grand or something.
I think that's where that online tool comes in.
Right.
So, and that's kind of.
Gave you some examples, and it's pretty hefty.
Right. So that's kind of where, if we don't have an online tool for property owners to see, has there been historically a nest to their property? How can they, if they are affected by this?
That financial contribution, is just for harassment. I mean, it doesn't even matter if you're doing something, just right outside your, you know, the coastal construction line, and the beach is, you know, 300 yards from that. If
Yeah, I
they're
mean,
breeding there and you're doing that construction, you automatically pay a contribution. Is that
Right, for
correct?
taking away habitat, yeah.
Oh, but even if you're in the dune, is my point, and they're nesting out on the beach, that's what I'm wondering. Just because it's on you're doing a improvement on your property, and there's nesting beaches, like I said, it could be 300 yards away on the beach, you'll have to contribute. Is that right? Your understanding of it? Let me
Yeah, I
ask
mean,
you that.
there's, I think it's more like 300 feet, not 300 yards, but, or
Okay.
maybe 500 feet, yeah. rather than-
If the remodeling, whatever you're doing, the alteration you're doing is 500 feet, and you pay,
That's a good question
the cost of doing business.
I think that's a good question to put into that imperiled, that email address and ask those questions for the commenting period, because that's what this commenting period's about, asking the questions, understanding what it means, how it's going to affect you.
Right, but it's also driven by DEP permits.
Right,
That
well,
would send somebody there to survey your land and say, here, this is, if you do this during
I think it's
nesting
more,
season.
yeah, FDEP would be the regulatory for the activity, however, FWC be commenting on it, and property needs to be raked, now you need to have a bird monitor go out, that's just an extra.
Oh, I see, so I mean, even if you're, like you said, a non-nesting area, if you're gonna rake, you're gonna have to have somebody come out and
Again,
say.
I mean,
Don't know.
what areas are the non-nesting areas, we don't know with your online tool, that's available.
Okay.
What's the extent up and down the beach?
Okay, and then we have until the 17th for comments.
What's the fine for chasing a flock of birds that are thousands strong and there's,
I had that conversation with Tyson actually today, because, I mean, I've noticed that as well, and I've educated some people out there when I see it, but it you know, within 5 minutes, you know, have a kid running through the birds, a dog loose, you know, around in the area, and then another couple walking through the birds, and I have my own ideas of just some simple signage education that may, you know, just notice people, hey, birds are resting before they make the long flight.
but I actually thought the same thing, like particularly because now they're at that spoil island.
Right.
And they seem to like to hang out in that area, although they do move around a little bit.
Right, and there's kind of an entrance, you know, on both sides where it's kind of connected in, where you could put some signage just to notice people. I don't think it's anything that we could leave out permanently or anything we should even leave out overnight.
Yeah.
So it's quite a bit of management with it.
The Beach Patrol could put them out on their first patrol.
I'll leave that to the.
It's also where the MRF tickets or information tickets would come in handy too.
Right, but I mean, it is an all-day job, being out there and just every time everybody wants to go walk on that sandbar, get it.
Okay, what about an ordinance?
We already have an ordinance. I mean, there's already state statute. There's an ordinance not to harass wildlife, and then these state threatened birds, and that spoil area is state lands. There's no, I mean, rules are there.
Just need to educate them.
Harassing endangered species is against the federal law too, I think, isn't it?
The endangered species.
Threatened, yeah, threatened. They would still qualify for protection. But, you know, at least you have the sign out there. I don't think it's going to be a panacea, is that the word? But at least addressing some of the issues, you know, and where that had the dog off leash and when I talked to them, I said, well, now you know, if FWC comes here, you can't claim ignorance.
Okay, so, and there, and also, so let's do members' items and reports, shall we? From the right there. Wendy, anything?
I have nothing to report.
Report here. Letta?
I think nothing today, Steve, thank you.
Just joking, actually, then I'll have to
Okay.
thunder. Well, there's one,
We have one nest left, and we're hoping that it even as we speak, they're thinking about bursting
out.
out into that boil. We hope it will go tonight.
Good.
Number 87, turtle nest.
My items reports are simply to commend the council again on their fine choice and reaching consensus to put in full-year amber lighting on Estero Boulevard. Probably the best thing for the wildlife, for human health, and certainly our endangered species on the island.
Just so you know, we
Night skies.
have consensus, and we're gonna vote on a resolution, but that's a recommendation to the county. So we still have to get the county to buy into it, and then figure out who's gonna pay what, and
Confident that-
FP&L to put it in their inventory.
We're confident on their past actions that they would support amber lighting. Now, the finances is it's a whole nother, I'm not gonna get involved with. Dr. Fossum?
Well, I actually want something to set the agenda, like report. After writing the article about pump outs, I talked to some of my friends who have boats, and I got this blank stare of not knowing. I said, well, where do you do it? Do it? I mean, it's total ignorance. And these are people in condos and on canals, total ignorance about what to do.
Oh,
Just have their Y valve open?
I started to ask, I said, what do you do with it? And they go like, I think they just. So it's not just the boats that are anchored out there. I think there is a big problem
Whoa.
of,
I need
you know,
that
I said, do you
information
know
from
there's
the
pump
public.
outs at the marinas? There are. Or like if they didn't, and these are boats that have toilets and need to be pumped out every once in a while. They didn't know there were pump outs at the marinas. They didn't know there was a pump out system.
just flows in and then flows
I mean,
out.
and these are people, I belong to the Fort Myers Yacht Club, which is a social club. Full ignorance. I met one person yet who knew anything about pump outs.
That would explain the E. coli in our water.
So
And Ricacos, yeah.
one, I think the system
Cool.
for pump outs is a little onerous. Especially, you know, you have to go to town hall, fill out a piece of paper, give them a whole $5, schedule a pump out, and then be there to help pump, you know, for the pump out. I propose having where we sell them a flag for $25. They just put it on their boat saying, I want to be pumped out. Pump out boat goes by, sees the flags up, pumps them out for free. I think having all the black water in our bay is a lot more expensive than $5 pump.
Yeah, but they can actually, I mean, I actually have a holding tank and I can pull right into snook bite anytime I want.
I mentioned going
And
to
they
a
will
marina,
just suck
and
it
they
right
said,
out.
they have that?
They do, they have a little machine.
I
I think though, that, you know, I understand the idea, although I think that the real benefit to that are the people who have boats that are not have a motor, that are essentially low-cost
Anchor.
housing on an anchor. If people have a boat at a dock and they go to the marina to get gas,
These are people who have a boat on a dock, who goes to the marina and had no clue about pump outs.
it's education, because, you know, the idea that someone's gonna put a flag up and then we have to pay our guy to patrol up and down the back looking for a flag. And then, just because the flag is up, did they put it up and then go to lunch? Are they around?
The access
Something
the
needs to
boat,
be,
yeah.
I mean, education, and also I think all those anchorage boats. But I think the real E. coli load to our bay is all the people with these big boats who are totally clueless.
Be signs to put on next to the gas pumps.
There are big signs that says pump out available next to the gas pumps.
Oh, that's like brain dead.
Free?
So,
Borderline
to
brain
kind
dead
of
if you
build
have a-
off a little bit of what you're both saying, and Jen, your handouts, when someone puts an anchor down in anywhere in the estuary or ties up to a mooring ball, like you said, we do have FWC, we do have patrols. What about a handout? Okay, you're anchored here, make sure this is happening.
These are people in slips and marinas.
Well, like
Not
every,
just anchorage people, these are,
you think it would be too
Boats
much?
hanging on lifts. Can you imagine
Yeah.
just dripping out of them? Holy,
You'll have them on boats and
it's, I
in the
mean,
lobbies of places and that?
just I mean, that's
I'm not gonna
just-
give names, but some, I mean, these people have large boats
Oh,
on
I'm
lifts.
sure.
and we're clueless about pump outs.
I think you should have a license to boat.
Okay, well,
I don't know.
So, I mean,
if you'd like us to put that on a future agenda, then
A lot of money, no sense with some of
we'll
this.
solve that right now.
I'm not gonna solve it, I just
Right.
want it on the agenda to help develop educational, I mean, I think the system is a little bit difficult, especially, I mean, if you could do it on your cell phone, do your, you know, say I need a pump out on Tuesday, or, you know, sign up for it, and not have to come all the way to town hall, fill out a piece of paper. Paper's a little archaic in this world.
I think Fishtail does it too.
Fishtail and Snook Bite and Diversified and Moss Marine
and
all
Pink
do
Shell.
pump outs.
All you do is have to pull in and
And
come
I think,
up and they'll
think about it,
suck
Greg,
out.
you're saying basically we're gonna get a 100 dipper, go from wherever it's now anchored, drive all the way, you know, half an hour down the island because someone sent a cell phone they want to pop out, and then go out all the way back and then not charge them anything when there's considerable expense to the town for that.
$5 has got something, and it's,
Well, if you receive
there's a reason
federal
they have to charge something, I think.
No. If you receive state or federal
Right.
dollars, you can't charge more than $5.
Okay, so I know there's a reason, but
These marinas, do they have to have permits to allow the different boats to be? Is there anything in the permit that says that, you know, they have to?
Their marina permits are very specific.
yeah,
They don't have to have
they
a
have
pump out
to,
station.
they have to manage the pumped out materials.
There's only, what, 6 pump outs on our island, I think. Fishtail, Snook Bite, Diversified, Moss Marine.
Shell.
I didn't know Pink Shell has pump outs.
Shell doesn't, Salty
Sorry,
Sands
so is
probably
it
has
in the
one, too.
permit that
Yeah,
they
Salty
have
Sands is
to have their boats pumped out by the marinas that they are renting from?
I don't know if it's that they have to have their boats pumped out, but I think it's, I can send you some permits.
I think that would
read
be
the
a good
language.
starting point is,
Okay,
I think, you know, Doc
Okay.
really hit on the need for education.
yeah, like I said, we'll definitely add that to the agenda next meeting.
I mean, as far as adding it to the agenda, I just want to remind the advisory committee that, I mean, that outs, the mooring field, et cetera, is all under the purview of another.
Is it? I mean, I don't know. Have we
The
verified that?
Anchorage.
Like,
I
but
would
like
just-
Doc said, it's not all just Anchorage.
If y'all want to talk about it, that's, you know, I'm not going to say, you know, it's not my place to tell you what to talk about, but I would also strongly encourage y'all to go and bring public comment and put your comments on the record with the,
Okay.
Go to an Anchorage.
sorry?
I did go to an Anchorage. I talked to, I forgot his name, 2 hours.
Austin?
Yes, I think, and that's how we came up with the problems.
It's the first step though, isn't it?
Right, okay.
Oh, I've got a few things. One is, you know, I just want to say thank you to the Fort Myers Beach Community Foundation for their donation to MRF of $1,000. Really appreciated it. I do have a card that if you all would sign, that would be wonderful. So I can give that to them October 20th. I was asked to do a talk for them at the Pancake Island Pancake House at 5:30. So if any of you that pop-up supplies, you see a list of pop-up supplies. I am trying to figure out how I can some of the things on this list. So I don't know. I wrote to Roger. I never heard back.
If you can, the links, if this stuff is on Amazon or online, if you can get the links to that in mail. I'm not sure how this is going to work either, but
Is it something I buy and then you reimburse me, or is it something that the town purchases and then gives to me? How does this work?
I believe the latter.
I know some teachers that might be available to donate some of these things, like the dry erase marker type of things.
Oh, wonderful.
We have permission to talk about this outside of here, so I can get you that information.
But we are allowed, small donations.
Okay, so I'll just do that for you, then I'll reach out to them.
Yeah.
Didn't bring it to her.
Yeah.
I am in need of thank you, for quite a few of these. So I'm in need of quite a few of these items. So send you an email or
Send it to me and I'll, push it through.
links?
Links to Amazon. That's what I was told the last time. Get the link, the product, of administrative staff. After it, that we had the money and an item, etc.
One more thing.
And I only wanted to say that I thought your amount for ink cartridges was pretty low because ink's very expensive.
That's another thing. I'm sure things have also been changing in prices, so I'll back online and look. I have an idea for the pop-up. I know that we had all spoken about, beach cleanup stations, and I thought, well, let's incorporate the beach cleanup station with the pop-up. And one of the things I was thinking is have a box with a little sign in front of it and getting some of the bags that town has, a smaller, I think, waste basket bags that they have, and put them in a box and offer that to the public. If they would like to grab a bag and do a beach cleanup, they can. So that's
idea.
a good idea for all of
All that.
would like to also do the pop-up for Shrimp Festival, and I think I need to get in touch with
Honest, or?
Yeah,
We'll get a freebie.
no,
the yacht club did.
oh yeah, I would hope this is but would we use the new tent? If that's the case, town tent. You're not listening?
I was actually passing around a little
Oh,
folder.
right. So I would like to do the pop-up at Shrimp Fest.
Okay.
But I was curious, would we be using the town tent that has the logo on the top? Or?
What's the one, they got a new one in the summer, but that's just a generic one?
Yeah, it's a great one for me just to set up by myself. That's a great tent, but it doesn't have the logo on the top, like the new tent.
Well, this is the thing that, what I was told is, and we made that idea to have a, town logoed custom tent top. Got an okay, Roger said it was a good idea, and so did Jennifer. But now they're saying, well, Murph has a budget. So if we want to make something special, I think Murph has a budget. And I was telling Jennifer this, that that's pretty unique. I mean, a lot of times it was in Murph, they didn't give us a budget. So they're giving you considerable,
Is that budget?
considerable perk to be able
We
to.
have that number?
I think we asked for 10, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Dollars?
$10,000. Now, I think they were thinking bag project. We also have the vegetation project. We have the pop-up. So it's just as a committee to think about how you're going to spend the money.
Prioritization.
Yeah. So, have to, maybe that's something you want to think about in the future as an agenda item to say how you're going to spend the money.
That town tent is not for Murph or the committees to use?
The communication I got was, and I can verify this, I should have talked about it to Roger today, is that I think that since they just got you the other tent, they didn't really have the town tent.
Really? Because when I was emailing Jenny, she said that they had ordered it.
The Guy Harvey top, does that fit on the new?
No,
The Guy Harvey top doesn't fit on the other.
That's a specific tent, the second one, and
Goes
it's
together.
shaped differently at the
Okay.
top.
not sure. Like, we're getting different information, so I'm not gonna try to, and I'm not really on staff, I don't really know the,
Just put some stickers on it?
Well, thank you. That was
the
my
banner.
second one is I do still have the logo, the Fort Myers Beach logo. I don't know if it would stick to the tent, but am I allowed to put that on there if it does? Yeah, the round,
Probably get
decal.
destroyed.
You know, I don't think anybody's gonna complain if you put a,
Long it lasts.
let's see. I think, good. Thank you.
Rose, you're up.
My little thing is that, my little subcommittee, we met September, we met like a week ago, and it's like I could use more direction on where this vegetation ordinance stuff go. Direction. Or I could, since only one MRF member can be on that little subcommittee, I could like give up my spot on it to get someone else.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. No ditching. No.
Rob could do it with the brochure.
Right.
Like, it's a great little subcommittee. I have got someone that's a Master Gardener volunteer. And he has a friend. They're doing the Google Map thing. And I have an Estero Island Garden Club member. It's like, we are diligently working on it. But there might be someone more qualified than myself.
Well, can we consider the sharing of the ordinances and come and contribute more at these meetings to constructively move it along before you?
I would love that, but the rules are that.
Well, I mean, we can talk about it at here. So if you can give us again the steering document, if you give us all copies of the invasive species.
Did I have essential chapter 10, the LDO, or the developmental order section? Everybody, I can resend that again. It has
to Municode.
A lot of verbiage in there, and just reading through it and what you think should be applied to single-family residences and what would be a good first start. There's a lot of good language already in there.
So step one is take what we have and say what we want to keep.
And then I have the links because my little subcommittee is looking at Bonita Springs, Sanibel, Treasure Island. I think we're going to add in Naples, but we're looking right now at what we have and Bonita Springs, Sanibel, and Treasure Island because the mayor said Treasure Island.
And Marco Island also has single-family home landscaping requirements.
Take Marco, Naples, and Bonita Springs. Treasure Island? And Treasure Island.
Sister.
Bonita Springs and Treasure Island.
Sanibel? Yep.
Oh, Sanibel.
They're right there.
Right. Treasure Island, they're northern. Let's take Sanibel. Let's take
Okay.
that.
The only thing I really liked from Treasure Island was that they're opening of intent
we'll
and
steal it.
purpose, but I'll just
We'll
send
take
that
that
to
one.
you separately.
Okay.
And then, like I said, the vegetation stuff is totally different because they are north of us, so.
Okay, and that's our homework. We'll have to do that and come back, and next month we're ready to contribute correction. Okay?
That would be wonderful.
We'll discuss your escape. Very good. Good, nice numbers and items reports this month.
I forgot something. If it's too late, I understand.
Just joking. Go ahead.
It's just something to throw in the next meeting. We'll talk about more. I want to talk about prop cages for rental boats. Potentially doing an ordinance to prop cages on. So you can get propeller cages to go around the propellers of boats. I know it's probably out of the question to require private owners, but most of the destruction I'm seeing on the seagrasses and that going over seagrass beds is you get the keys from the property or the rental boats, and they just right over them. And these guys, I've talked to a lot of the guys doing the rentals. They're doing awesome educating about it, but it's just in one ear out the other. If we just require them to have prop covers, which doesn't inhibit much with the boat's performance, it doesn't hurt much of the fuel. It's just one extra little, couple extra little bolts if you're doing a prop change. I think if we made it a city ordinance that rental boats need to have those. We could save a lot of lives. Not only dolphins, manatees, but seagrass critters, seagrass itself.
How much are those?
No discussion? We'll
Depends.
put that on the meeting agenda. Anyway,
There's a couple of, I'll have that information for the next meeting.
boats and prop cages. There's that. So, yeah, but first, public comment. And I'm guessing that Mr. Perry has sat there an entire meeting in the hopes of speaking for.
Well, one, I'll touch on Treasure Island. I did that beach, last January, the entire island.
Say your name again,
For the record, Bill Perry. And, yeah, you're right, their beach vegetation's completely different. They do have a lot of sea oats. They don't have any cloyne vine, they don't have any Australian pines, but, I don't even know how you can compare Treasure Island to Four Miners Beach. That's just touching on Treasure Island. As far as the pier, what Robert brought up, I think the only way to solve that problem is to email Wright, Carmine, the sheriff. Don't go anything below him. He's a real lover of animals. Go right to him. Also, pressure on the county commissioner for our area. Have a sheriff deputy, instead of sitting in their cars talking to each other, doing a beat where they walk over there. Walk to the end of the pier. That's all you need. They've got to be out there because, unfortunately, FWC is underfunded. So they just don't have enough personnel. They've got their hands full. So a sheriff's deputy knows what the infractions are, you know, that's going to help a lot because nobody argues with them. Carry a gun. Nobody argues with those guys. And I see over the last several years how much more the area of the island that's in is becoming more and more difficult. We won't even groom that area. We don't do anything north of Staro Island Beach Club, and then we jump all the way up to Royal Beach and Bel Air. We won't go anywhere in that area. We call it the combat zone. I won't even traverse that area in my tractor. So I can see what you mean about having problems with people, trying to educate them, trying to be nice, trying to explain to them. I think in one way it's pointless. The only way to do it is have law enforcement enforcing the rules.
Thank you.
Bad reflection on our society today, but it's unrealistic. I did not bring up the proposed new regulations for the shorebird nesting species because it wasn't on the agenda. But I've been in a series of calls with FWC. In fact, while I was in the meeting, I had to go out and respond to Rebecca Schneider's call. And this first round was for the people who were really impacted, the stakeholders. Were going to be impacted by these proposed changes. Of course, I was included. And they'll formulate their changes, go before the commission, and then they will notify statewide all the indirect stakeholders. That's upland property owners, resorts. The thing I did find out, not be allowed to have any offshore boat races anytime between February 15th, September 1st. This year we were okay. Hey, you were out looking at the birds with Penny. Boats were flying down 100 miles an hour down the beach. We won't be able to have that anytime between that period anymore in the future. So there will be impacts. Part of what I do, I already work with the FWC for years with monitoring before I go into an area to work. We're to do that in the critical wildlife area, which is one of the areas where there's, you know, already locations of nesting shorebirds. The other place is the Wyndham, and of course Carlos Beach, Outage Point. So there's one other tentative place, but they're not ready to actually list it because they have to verify it. The process is going to be very strict on the verification of sites. So I like that because they're going to do their homework and they're going to make sure. They're not just rely on one person. There's going to be a verification process. There's going to be an auditing everything. In a way, I think it's a good thing because like my activity, Even when I go up as far and work in Clearwater, before I go out to Tilla Beach to make it turtle friendly, if it's after February 15th, there's bird monitors. Monitor those areas. So I have no problem with it. In fact, I raised the question 2 years ago to FWC, why do I have to make sure that the beaches are clear for me to groom the beach with the turtle lady before I start? But nobody does that for the birds. Oh, this is where they've come to. So it's basically going to be the same for the birds as it has been the turtles for many years. So in a way, I welcome it. I think it's a good thing. I have no problem working with a bird monitor, having them. I've done it for years, so I have no problem with that. And I think in the end, it'll have to be an island-wide thing. Anyway, those are all the comments. Thank you.
Thank you for the information. I will be doing that.
Okay, set agenda for next meeting. Carlos Point comes off, I would say. Add it back in, exotic vegetation stays on. And the homework there is to review the ordinances, obviously, and be prepared to maybe move this thing forward if we can. Dark skies will stay on. Brochure will come off. Off, I think, yeah, unless there's,
Yeah, until
no, yeah.
someone gets their act
I
together.
think so, yeah, it doesn't seem to be anything forthcoming, yeah. On pure wildlife,
I'm gonna look into that, and if I need to, I'll bring it up again later.
okay, we'll do that. Shall we add, spouts? Or do we talk to the Anchorage Committee about that? Changing that?
When I went to the Anchorage Committee, they're more concerned about mooring field. Nothing outside the mooring.
Yeah, so originally you were gonna go sit with them and say, are you guys gonna look at water quality around the marinas? Meaning, do we, enforce blue pills for the pump out so you can see if it's leaking into the bay? I think there's three things. One was, marine testing, water testing in the marinas.
There is an extensive water testing on, for the state, and also, who else? A mine is helping with the water.
I know
But the
county's
results
doing
aren't
it,
coming
too.
out though, and I don't know.
I don't understand
County
how they're doing
website.
water testing in a tidally influenced area like that. How is that showing
I
accurate
mean, you're
results?
also getting the river flow through the whole bay doesn't empty and refill every tidal cycle.
No, but also what's pumped from a boat isn't staying right there.
Okay,
No,
so
it's just overall bay quality. They're just four different
I see.
segments.
I'm looking for point source.
okay, so we'll keep
Thank you.
pump outs on the agenda so we can steer it either here or elsewhere.
We'll get a steering document for that.
Can you put a steering document together?
When is the next meeting?
Month.
I would just make sure I'm
November.
in town. Not working.
Duration for prop cages? Those are technically pretty quick items, I'd say. Do we think that's something we can talk about again, or do we need a little more time?
Let's give it some more time with the renourishment coming up. I'd like to sync it up with renourishment.
Do you consider adding renourishment to the agenda just to give us an update?
Sure.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is Times Square cleaned every day? Do they have, someone told me that they clean it every day, the little Times Square area.
Through there probably
Go
with a
through with
pressure wash or something?
or the machine to
I see
clean
the
the
machine and I
streets?
see blowers out there every morning that I come on the island.
Every morning?
Every time I've been on, yep.
Something's not working with their equipment then, because Times Square, when we do the pop-up, I'm out there at 7 o'clock in the morning. Not getting clean. There's vomit. Like I've seen cigarette butts. We've got to get something to stop cigarette butts. I mean, we've got to encourage people to, you know, put a cigarette butt in a receptacle
Well,
or
we've-
something.
We've discussed it with Chad to bring up to
And the
public
point
works.
person for
Sorry, I
that
get
is,
really upset when
I
I
mean-
see this.
I agree.
Public Works is the
Yeah.
person for
Let's
that.
pass that on, that came in last meeting that we
Oh, I
discussed
wasn't
it.
here.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Because that was on
No,
Rose's
at the
member
meeting
report.
before. No, I brought it up multiple
Okay, good.
times, yeah, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
So
like,
are we gonna get those receptacles or whatever, the little things around?
I don't think we know. Do we know, Chad? That's up to
That-
our
It's not really my,
public works director.
right.
Pass that along to them.
Want to make a motion to council to, you know, or put it on the next agenda or something to get it in front of council to get staff's attention?
I would,
oh, yes, please.
do I move a motion? I don't know.
Do you do the motion?
Do I do a motion?
Maybe a little late, it kind of, you're supposed to be talking about what to put on the agenda, so maybe.
Times Square?
We'll put it on the agenda.
Again, I was talking about the street, that's what I see, I don't, you're talking about back in
There,
the
I mean,
public
it's
area, being clean.
About to be done. I
Gonna be
think
redone
typically when
and-
that happens, they just let things languish, because, oh, well, this is all gonna be redone in a month or two, right? So, I feel like that's the way with the lighting, downtown lighting. Enough? Is there anything
But
else?
this, you know, I'm not just talking about it getting redone, I'm talking about cigarette butts and
Right, sure,
garbage
it's cleaning,
and
yeah.
stuff that's getting into our waterways now, so that is something, if we can do something to, you know, before be doing it every day. It should be the area should be cleaned every single day, there should be,
Point taken, we're gonna add it to the agenda.
okay.
Is there anything from our councilman that would like to see on the agenda?
I've talked enough.
We agree with that? But Chad, was there anything from the staff liaison here that
Plenty on my hands right now.
we're missing? Okay, so that's, we'll fix it at that. Move to adjourn at 5:58? Okay,
Under 3 hours.
all in favor? Everybody opposed?
59.
Motion carries. I got it up, 58. Been released them. I put my brother-in-law on one, I put my godson on one, we got one Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Oh my God.